Blissful Bookshelf. Chapter 280. Ling Han immediately withdrew the strange fire into the Black Tower, only to see the strange fire jump joyfully in the Black Tower. This world was much bigger than the palm that it could only hibernate in before. Small tower appeared, Wang, and released a ray of light that enveloped the strange fire. Yaya. The strange fire wanted to escape, but how could it escape? It kept trembling, as if expressing its fear. Hopefully, small tower wouldn't torment it to death, Ling Han thought, no longer paying attention to the strange fire. Ahead, the imperial palace was already in sight. Zai Xiang was already waiting at the entrance of the imperial palace. When he saw that Ling Han was late, he couldn't help but reveal a hint of dissatisfaction, and said, "You actually made His Majesty wait for so long, how dare you?" Ling Han glared at him, and said, "If you want to blame someone, it's His Majesty's business. What are you shouting for? You?" Zai Xiang glared fiercely. "Don't you, I'm a black-grade high-level alchemist. Even His Majesty politely calls me Grandmaster Ling. You're so arrogant, do you think you're even more awesome than His Majesty? Hee, you're the one with more guts, Captain Zai." Ling Han said with a smile. Zai Xiang was startled. Ling Han was right. A black-grade high-level alchemist was a big shot in Rain Country, and even Rain Emperor had to treat them with respect. But he clearly shouted for Rain Emperor's sake, so how did it become him looking down on Rain Emperor? Something was definitely wrong. He was extremely talented in martial arts, but he was extremely lacking in terms of worldly wisdom. Being led by Ling Han like this, he was instantly confused. "Since you're being impolite to me, then I don't need to give you face. I'm leaving." Ling Han turned and was about to leave. "Wait." Zai Xiang hurriedly caught up, and said, "His Majesty wants to see you, you can't leave." Ling Han glared at him, and acted as if he didn't hear. Zai Xiang finally reacted, and said, "Grandmaster Ling, His Majesty summons you. Please follow me. Be smarter in the future and put your mind on martial art." "But you can't practice martial arts all day and turn yourself into a fool," Ling Han said lightly. Zai Xiang was so angry that the corner of his mouth twitched, but he could only nod his head obediently, fearing that Ling Han would turn around and leave. Ling Han couldn't help but smile. Having lived two lives, could it be that he couldn't control a hothead? The two of them once again arrived at the main sky hall. Zai Xiang was still guarding the door while Ling Han walked in. The Rain Emperor sat high above on the throne, but this time, Su Kuexian was not nestled at his feet. Presumably, the deal she had made with the Rain Emperor had finally come to an end. She had obtained another 10 foundation building pills, so she had already left the imperial palace and gone to some corner to cultivate. She would only come out again after she had broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier. "What do you plan to do next?" the Rain Emperor asked directly. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, "I should leave Rain Country." "That's right. The Winter Moon sect is a large sect after all. This time, I can drive back Flower Blossom tier warriors, but next time, if a spiritual infant tier warrior comes, I won't be able to match them," the Rain Emperor said. He didn't boast at all, saying nonsense like he'd resist even if a spiritual infant tier warrior came, but this didn't weaken his domineering aura. The Rain Emperor paused, then said, "This emperor will soon abdicate. Although Old Seven has a tough backbone, his strength is still too weak." Ling Han nodded. No matter how tough the 7th prince's neck was, his poly-tier cultivation was his weakness. Even if he grasped power of the nation, he'd have to kneel before a spiritual ocean tier warrior. Blissful Bookshelf. Although Rain Country still had a Flower Blossom tier warrior, he had always been low-key and definitely wouldn't make a move unless the country was in danger. If the Rain Emperor abdicated, and the Winter Moon sect came to ask for him, the 7th prince definitely wouldn't be able to withstand such pressure. This wasn't a matter of whether he retreated or not. In martial art, whoever had the bigger fist, the Rain Emperor also used strength to beat He Jingchu back. I plan to go to the Star Brilliance Palace Hall and get myself an Earth-grade alchemist to play with, he said. In the whole vast lands, probably only Ling Han had the right to talk about getting himself an Earth-grade alchemist to play with. Even in a place like the North region, an Earth-grade alchemist was an extremely lofty existence, and everyone had to call him a grandmaster. But for the Alchemy Emperor, an Earth-grade alchemist was just a game. Too simple. He now advanced into the Gushing Spring tier and wasn't far from the Spiritual Ocean tier. The power of the strange fire increased greatly, and he could completely concoct Earth-grade medicinal pills. And with an Earth-grade alchemist as a protective talisman, at least on the surface, very few people dared to attack him. In private, it was hard to say. He'd kill them secretly, no matter what background they had, so what if they were the son of a shattering void tier warrior? The Rain Emperor smiled, and said, "Don't worry and leave. I'll take care of the De Yuan King and protect the Ling family for you. You'll always be a citizen of Rain Country, and I'll let you have no worries." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Ling Han clasped his hands in salute. He indeed needed this favor, or else he could only put Ling Dongxing and the others into the Black Tower. The Rain Emperor gave him face, not because the Rain Emperor needed it, but because he, as the Emperor, had to consider for Rain Country. An Earth-grade alchemist, not to mention whether Ling Han would concoct a medicinal pill for Rain Country in the future, merely this title could attract countless alchemists to come on a pilgrimage. It could be imagined that Rain Country would definitely prosper in the future, and become the best among the 9 nations of the desolate north. If the Winter Moon sect wants to send someone over, they'll arrive in 10 days if they're fast, the Rain Emperor reminded. Ling Han nodded, and said, "In 5 days, I'll depart." "That's good." The Rain Emperor smiled. "Your achievements in alchemy astonished me, and your talent in martial art also astonishes me. Live well, and perhaps in a few decades, I'll see a rising star appear on the stage of the vast lands, dazzling the world." Ling Han laughed. This was inevitable. Even if he was an idiot in martial art, his identity as the Alchemy Emperor in his last life was enough to make him a dazzling star. And he was also very good to the Rain Emperor. After giving up the throne and leaving Rain Country, although the Rain Emperor had lost the support of the power of the nation, it allowed him to focus all his attention on martial art. This was a rare talent in martial art, and his future achievements could be very shocking. To be honest, he even had the thought of taking him as a disciple, but if he said this out loud, he'd definitely be crushed to death by others. Go. The Rain Emperor summoned him because he wanted him to leave Rain Country. Since Ling Han already had this plan, there was naturally no need to say anything more. Ling Han left the Imperial Palace and returned to Huyang University. There were still 5 days, and he had to make arrangements. People like Guang Yuan, Zhu Wujiu, and the others would naturally be taken with him, but he still had to ask for their opinions. Zhu Wujiu and Guang Yuan had no objections, and were willing to leave Rain Country with Ling Han. They had nothing to miss here anyway, but Jin Wuji and Li Hao couldn't let go of their families and lovers, so they tactfully declined Ling Han's invitation. Ling Han didn't force them either. Everyone had their own pursuits. On the other hand, Lu Yutong and Li Xichan insisted on following him no matter what. Chapter 281. The Rain Emperor acted swiftly and decisively. Merely 2 days later, a decree was issued, passing the throne to the 7th Imperial Prince, while the eldest and 3rd Imperial Princes were transferred to the border to guard, and their residences were taken back. Obviously, they were going to die of old age outside the Great Wall, and would never be able to return to the Imperial City. This was very much in line with the Rain Emperor's aggressiveness. Either he didn't make a move, or once he did, he wouldn't show any mercy, even to his own son. Just like that, the eldest Imperial Prince and the 3rd Imperial Prince retreated from the political stage of Rain Country. No matter how powerful and influential they had been previously, in front of the true imperial power, they were so weak that they did not even have the slightest ability to fight back. They could not even bargain with each other or find a quiet place to retire. However, this also ensured the smooth transition of imperial power. Without the eldest and third imperial princes stirring up trouble, the seventh imperial prince's throne was naturally as stable as Mount Tai. Moreover, when the Rain Emperor made his move earlier, he had also left an impression of invincibility in the eyes of the 8 great clans. Even if the 7th imperial prince was still young now, and was only an element-gathering tier, who would dare to show disdain for him? The Rain Emperor was a fierce person who dared to beat up the spiritual pedestal tier elites of the Winter Moon sect, and even forced back a Flower Blossom tier elite. Though most people didn't want the Rain Emperor to abdicate, after all, the Rain Emperor just showed aggressiveness, and was like a god in everyone's eyes, who could influence the thoughts of such a ruler. The new emperor's ascension was set to be 10 days later, but Ling Han couldn't wait until that day. After he finished dealing with the remaining matters in the imperial city, he set out to return to Grey Cloud Town. This time, he went to the Star Brilliance Palace Hall after careful consideration, because if he wanted to repair Ling Dongxing's spirit base, the Rain country didn't have any remaining Samadhi medicine. Only in a vast place like the North region could it be possible to obtain the remaining Samadhi medicine. After all, it was an ingredient for concocting a medium-level Earth-grade medicinal pill, and even a great clan like the Winter Moon sect viewed it as a treasure. Traveling with him were Guang Yuan, Zhu Wujiu, Ken Yi, Lu Yutong, Li Xichan, Zhu Hexian, and Qi Zhantai. Hun Yo had already woken up and was fine, and was very lively and energetic. Sure enough, it could eat, sleep, fight, and take a beating. It was a little monster. Nyo is not a little monster, Nyo is a little demon. Hun Yo giggled, and even kissed Ling Han on the cheek, causing Li Xichan and Lu Yutong's pretty faces to turn green. After the forced marriage, Lu Yutong was completely disappointed in her family. She wholeheartedly wanted to follow her master. Li Xichan's reason was much better, she wanted to learn alchemy from Ling Han. However, her comprehension in alchemy was quite good, so Ling Han did not object to her following him. Ken Ye's reason was even simpler. He followed the agreement and followed Ling Han until the day he could defeat Ling Han. When Zhu Hexian heard that Ling Han was going to the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, he naturally eagerly followed. Among all the alchemists, he was the closest to Ling Han. After all, he had only become friends with Ling Han when he was at his weakest, so their friendship was much deeper than that of others. Thus, Ling Han did not mind giving the old man a few more pointers. However, Zhu Hexian's talent was limited, and his limit in this lifetime was only that of a black-grade high-level alchemist. Even so, Zhu Hexian was extremely excited. In Rain Country, he was a big boss of alchemy. Qi Zhantai was completely a bystander. One moment, she said that she wanted to learn alchemy from Ling Han, and the next moment, she said that she wanted to go back to the Yuan city to visit her relatives. In any case, she followed them like sticky candy. However, Ling Han decided that when they reached the Yuan city, he would definitely get rid of her. After all, they were not familiar with each other. 5 days later, they returned to the Yuan city. They first left Qi Zhantai with the De Yuan king, who had returned early, and then they went to Grey Cloud Town. The Ling family had already been rebuilt, and was now the only great clan in Grey Cloud Town. However, Ling Dongxing was not domineering in his way of doing things. Although he controlled all the businesses in Grey Cloud Town, the Ling family still left some soup for the other smaller clans, so their relationship was still quite good. When Ling Han returned, Ling Dongxing was naturally overjoyed. Previously, when the De Yuan king had returned early, he had already brought back the news that Ling Han had become a black-grade high-level alchemist. Thus, not only was the Ling family overjoyed, the whole of Grey Cloud Town was in an uproar, and they all came to congratulate him. In the past, there had only been 2 black-grade high-level alchemists in the whole Rain country, and in De Yuan city, they were even more awesome. Even the De Yuan king had to greet them respectfully and address them as Grandmaster. Good, good, good. Ling Dongxing was so excited that tears were flowing out of his eyes. He had long since known that his son was not a person of mediocre talent, and would definitely be able to soar to the skies after this trip to the imperial city. However, he had never imagined that his son would be able to soar so fiercely and soar so high. He only hugged Ling Han tightly, and continuously patted Ling Han's back, choking with sobs, unable to say a single word. For so many years, he had always thought that his son was a piece of trash, causing him to feel extremely ashamed towards his wife. Now that his son had finally soared to the skies, he felt that even if he died now, he would still be able to face his wife in the future. Ling Han took out the food from the Black Tower. There was naturally no need to mention the vegetables and fruits, and he could also select some cattle and sheep to be slaughtered. After handing them over to the chefs to be processed, the moment they were placed on the table, just the freshness of the food alone caused everyone's eyes to stare fixedly at it, and they almost drooled. Nios. Hunyo pouted in a very petty manner, but she could not oppose Ling Han, so she could only open her small mouth and eat with all her might. Her thinking was very simple. If she could eat everything into her own stomach, then she wouldn't be at a loss. The little girl made a clean sweep of the food on her table, and then ran to another table to slaughter, causing all the guests to disregard their pride and fight for food with all their might. Ping, ping, pang, pang. The courtyard was filled with the sounds of chopsticks clashing against plates and chewing. These things were really too delicious. No one opened their mouth to speak, afraid that if they missed a bite, it would all be gone. This was not a blind worry. Everyone looked as if they had been starving for 3 days and 3 nights. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they wanted nothing more than to strangle the necks of everyone at the same table and make them stop so that they could eat to their heart's content. It's over, it's over. Such delicious food, after eating it once, they could not forget it. In the future, if they could not eat it anymore, how would they live? Ling Han left behind a lot of food ingredients for the Ling family. In any case, the space of the Black Tower was ridiculously large, forming a world of its own. Not to mention a single Ling family, even if the entire population of Rain Country moved in, with the vegetables and pigs raised in the Black Tower, it would be enough to ensure that they would not starve to death. In these few days, the vegetables and other things in the Black Tower had already been harvested in quite a few batches. New seeds were sown, and they grew in patches. Moreover, in the Black Tower, Ling Han was a godlike existence. Harvesting, sowing, he only needed a thought to do it, and there was no need for him to do it himself. Ling Han still asked Ling Dongxing if he wanted to stay in the Black Tower. This way, he could guarantee the absolute safety of the Ling family. However, after careful consideration, Ling Dongxing still decided to stay in Grey Cloud Town. This was the roots of the Ling family, not to mention that not long ago, the blood of many members of the Ling family had been spilled here. Ling Dongxing did not want to leave, and vowed to build up the Ling family even better. Ling Han naturally would not force it. He left behind almost all the silver notes, and then concocted a large number of low-level alchemical pills. With these 2 things, it would be difficult for the Ling family not to become stronger. The bank was opened by Rain Country royalty, and these silver notes were just waste paper outside of Rain Country. Who would allow you to exchange them for real money? Thus, Ling Han only went to exchange some gold and silver to bring with him. Having a starting capital was enough. Moreover, the popular currency in the vast lands was not gold and silver, but origin power crystals. Cell phones were more refreshing to read. Chapter 282. After staying in Grey Cloud Town for 3 days, Ling Han set out on his journey. Ling Han temporarily didn't plan to expose the Black Tower, so the group hired 2 carriages, swaying as they headed towards the border of Rain Country. The speed wasn't fast, but it didn't matter. Ling Han wasn't in a hurry. In the group, Ling Han, Lu Yutong, Li Xichan, and Hunyo sat in one carriage, while Guang Yuan, Zhu Wujiu, Ken Yi, and Zhu Hexian sat in the other. As for why Ling Han sat in the same carriage with 2 beauties, Guang Yuan and the others naturally understood. Actually, they didn't understand that Ling Han and the others spent most of their time in the Black Tower, where the space was 10,000 times more comfortable than carriages. Ling Han already built a gorgeous residence in the Black Tower. Just like the floating palace in the Devil Sky Mystery Realm, this was also floating in the air, but didn't need the support of a formation. This place was a world of its own, and Ling Han's will was the rules of the world. If he wanted gravity to disappear, then it would disappear, simple. Both Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan loved staying in there, which made them secretly happy as the mistress of the house. However, Hunyo would always destroy their fantasies at the right time, reminding them that Ling Han belongs to Nyo. This space was originally extremely monotonous, but Ling Han rearranged it, creating mountains and rivers in this endless plain. At this moment, he was sitting beside a lake, holding an eyeball in his hand. Trivial matters were settled, and he should cultivate the eye of truth. He pressed the eyeball against his right eye, activating a wave of will to enter the eyeball. Instantly, his mind exploded, forming one strange scene after another. This was the wondrous effect of the eye of truth. He saw that the eye of truth could see through the enemy's flaws, see his own inadequacies, break through bewildering formations, and penetrate deep stone slabs. In the last scene, he even saw a martial artist's eyes light up and explode a star in the sky. He was shocked, and his consciousness retreated from his eyeball like a tide. Everything returned. This eyeball definitely came from the body of a heaven-tier warrior, but his eye of truth shone and could even destroy a star. This completely exceeded the limits of the heaven tier. In other words, there were shattering void tier, or even immortal tier almighty cultivators who cultivated the eye of truth, and when they opened their eyes, a ray of light could shoot through the stars. This is the limit of the eye of truth. Ling Han sighed. In his previous life, he lived in his own world and only knew how to refine pills. He had no idea that this world was actually so vast that it was far beyond his imagination. The heaven tier was really nothing much. Fortunately, his body was blasted apart by the Black Tower, and he came back to life after 10,000 years. In this life, he wanted to live an extremely exciting life. He wanted to battle all the experts in the world and trample on all the geniuses. He stuck the eyeball close again and began to extract the will of martial art from it. A mystical power that wasn't inherited by bloodline could only be like this. The imperial family had possessed this eyeball for innumerable years, yet they were still unable to obtain this mystical power because they did not have the ability to activate the incomplete martial intent within it. However, Ling Han was different. He had a sliver of the divine sense of the heaven tier. Taking a step back, he still had the Black Tower, right? In this place, he was a godlike existence. In Ling Han's consciousness, countless patterns lit up and formed characters, but every character was meaningless. They weren't words, nor were they pictures. This was the materialization of the will of martial art. It couldn't be expressed in language or words, but it also surpassed them. Otherwise, how could a mystical power possessed by a beast be learned by a human? Ling Han was like a sponge, endlessly absorbing the will of martial art, comprehending it with his heaven-tier comprehension. Rays of treasured light rose on his body. This was an extremely high-level mystical power, causing the rules of heaven and earth to resonate. He sat for a day and a night. Fortunately, he'd already said not to call them if they didn't come out, so there was no movement in the carriage for a day and a night. Neither Guang Yuan nor the coachman came to knock on the door. However, Guang Yuan and the others suffered. They were already addicted to the ingredients prepared by Ling Han, but Ling Han didn't come out now, so they could only eat at roadside inns. The taste was naturally completely different, and the taste was as bad as chewing wax, angering them so much that they almost smashed the inn. Ling Han released Lu Yutong and the other two girls, in case it would be strange if he didn't appear for too long. He himself continued to comprehend the eye of truth in the Black Tower. 13 days later, this eyeball suddenly turned to ash. Ling Han already obtained the inheritance of the Eye of Truth, and the will of martial art was completely extracted by him, so this eyeball naturally couldn't be preserved. Mystical powers were all like this, they could only be passed on to one person, or bear a few more. Unfortunately, this eyeball was shot by an arrow, obliterating much of the will of martial art. I didn't obtain the complete inheritance. Ling Han sighed, appearing very regretful. Fortunately, this part is the highest level of inheritance, and I can't use it now. When I reach the Shattering Void tier, or even the God tier, I might have the chance to obtain the complete Eye of Truth. Now, my Eye of Truth should have some small accomplishment, right? Ling Han opened his right eye, and in his eye, there were actually many large stars surging, then exploding one by one. This was very shocking. He focused his eyes and looked ahead, discovering that his vision improved by a large margin. Not only could he see further, he could also see more clearly, and everything appeared in his mind regardless of the size. Then, with his heaven-tier divine sense, the useless information was eliminated one by one, and the useful details would be transmitted to his consciousness for his reference. He raised his hand, and saw that the details of his skin were infinitely magnified. He could clearly see the pores on his skin, and even more carefully, he could faintly feel the blood surging under his skin. But after a while, he felt a slight soreness in his eye, and hurriedly dispersed the Eye of Truth. His right eye immediately returned to normal, and other than the greatly improved vision, there was no other difference. He revealed a smile. The Eye of Truth was already cultivated, and he only needed to slowly strengthen it in the future. However, activating the Eye of Truth consumes the power of the divine sense, and not origin power. Strange. Ling Han shook his head. He only heard of mystical powers in his previous life, but never cultivated them, so he didn't know if this was the uniqueness of the Eye of Truth, or if all mystical powers were activated through the power of the divine sense. He didn't think about it anymore, and with a flash, exited the Black Tower. He was almost at the Star Brilliance Palace Hall. The entire vast lands were divided into 5 enormous regions, namely the East, South, West, and the Middle State. As the name suggested, the Middle State was located in the center of the vast lands, where martial art flourished the most. Then, there were the 4 great regions, which were divided into the East, South, and West directions. Among the 4 regions, the level of martial art in the North region was the weakest, and spiritual infant-tier warriors could dominate, unlike the other 3 regions, which at least had heaven-tier warriors keeping watch. The 9 nations of the desolate north were in the northernmost part of the vast lands. Leaving Rain Country, heading south was an uninhabited area, and ahead was the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, which connected the 9 nations of the desolate north to the North region. Phone reading was more refreshing. Moreover, the dishes on your table seemed to be even more delicious. His eyes lit up, and his saliva almost flowed out. Indeed, with different ingredients, the fragrance that wafted out was also different. Didn't those waiters all swallow their saliva with all their might? Ling Han looked at that young man in embroidered robes, and felt that he was interesting. He smiled, and said, "If you still have an appetite, please sit." The young man in embroidered robes was overjoyed, and hurriedly sat down. He drew out a pair of chopsticks, and began to eat. He finally came out. If he wanted to eat, he had to fight for it, no one would be polite with him. Excellent, excellent. He ate a mouthful of meat, and instantly, his face was about to turn into a flower. This is a level 2 demonic beast, captivating fragrance deer, right? No, I've eaten quite a lot of captivating fragrance deer, but the taste has definitely not been as delicious as this. Furthermore, there are many precious herbs inside, and with one mouthful, all the pores on my body have opened up, and my cultivation has increased slightly. He could not help but grumble, and said, "Waiter, if you have such good stuff, why don't you give it to me? Is it because you think that I can't afford to pay in origin crystals?" Ling Han laughed, and said, "These are not supplied to outsiders. The eyes of the young man in embroidered robes immediately lit up, and he said, "You are the boss of this restaurant?" "That's right." Ling Han nodded. "You provide me with this kind of ingredients every day. How about you name the price?" The young man in embroidered robes said hurriedly. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "I've already said that these are not supplied to outsiders, and are reserved for my own family." The eyes of the young man in embroidered robes shifted, and he said, "My name is Gong Letian, how should I address you, brother?" If these words were heard by the people in the circle of youths, they would definitely exclaim in disbelief, because this guy's background was astonishing, and he had always been proud. Even in the extreme Yang city, there were not many people that he took seriously, and now he actually addressed someone as brother so enthusiastically, which was really inconceivable. But it also meant that this guy was really a glutton. Ling Han smiled calmly, and said, "Ling Han. Brother Ling, from today onwards, you are my brother." Gong Letian was extremely enthusiastic. "Since we are brothers, then those ingredients." He looked at Ling Han eagerly, as if he was a puppy. Hang! A cold humph was heard, and a young man walked in from the door. His expression was dark, and he looked extremely miserable. "How dare you, to actually dare treat my subordinates like this?" It was none other than Lang Junkai. Lu Yutong immediately stood up, and said, "You are not welcome here, get lost." What a joke! In the extreme Yang city, who has the right to tell me to get lost? Lang Junkai sneered, and there was anger on his face. Something that was originally in the bag actually encountered a setback. He was originally teasing a newly arrived pillar of the Listen to the Rain pavilion, as usual, when he suddenly heard a servant report that the people that he had sent out this morning had all been captured, and were now being hung up as a public warning. This made him so angry that he was seething with anger. He did not care that he had not eaten that alluring little thing, and immediately rushed over. "Che, Lang Junkai, when did you become so impressive?" Gong Letian suddenly spoke. Previously, he still had the appearance of a pitiful little puppy, but the moment he turned around, he was filled with a domineering arrogance. "Does this young master also not have the right to tell you to get lost?" "Gong, young master Gong." Lang Junkai instantly choked up, and revealed a sliver of panic. The Lang clan could be considered a prestigious clan in the extreme Yang city, but their true confidence came from that earth-grade alchemist that they relied on. However, the Gong clan itself was an aristocratic clan of alchemy. Aside from Gong Letian, the other three generations were all alchemists, and Gong Hikan of the older generation was even a low-level earth-grade alchemist. Compared to the Gong clan, the Lang clan was naturally greatly inferior, and there was absolutely no way to compare them. For these spoilt young masters, what they competed on was of course their clan's background. Even if Lang Junkai and Gong Letian both had the cultivation of the fifth layer of the spiritual ocean tier, Lang Junkai did not have the slightest bit of confidence in front of Gong Letian. "Don't affect this young master's mood to eat, get lost." Gong Letian revealed his domineering side. Chapter 284. Hunyo jumped out and lay on Ling Han's back, her little face full of excitement because she hadn't fought in a long time, and was feeling uncomfortable all over. "Young Master Fu, I beg you, I beg you." Seeing that the young man in embroidered clothes was about to leave, the farmers all knelt and crawled to chase after him. Some stood in front of him, and two hugged his legs. The young man in embroidered clothes instantly revealed an expression of extreme disgust, and with a flick of his leg, kicked the two people hugging his legs away. With a face full of anger, he said, "Lowly things, you dare to use your dirty hands to touch this young master. Beat him." The two servants immediately moved and rolled up their sleeves, about to grab the two people who were kicked away. "Daddy!" A young child ran out and threw himself onto one of the farmers, turning around and saying, "Don't hit my dad." The two servants paused for a moment, but the young man in embroidered robes snorted and said, "What? The two of you can't even defeat a child." This caused the two servants to shiver, and they hurriedly broke into a run. Bastard, not even sparing such a small child. Fight him. We're going to starve to death anyway, so we might as well fight and exchange a life for a life. Hearing the young man in embroidered clothes say so, the farmer's ferocious nature was completely aroused. Since they weren't given a way to live, then aside from fighting to the death, what other choice did they have? However, in front of a gushing spring-tier warrior, no matter how strong their will to die was, it was useless. What an arrogant child! Guang Yuan said coldly. The young man in embroidered robes turned his head and saw that although Guang Yuan had a wild aura about him, it was obvious that he did not come from a big sect or a big clan. However, his clothes were gorgeous and he had a strong aura around him. Obviously, he was a loose cultivator. He turned around and said, "What great guts, actually daring to insult this young master. A mongrel from the 9 nations of the desolate north, thinking that you're strong and can run amok in the world. Bullshit, let this young master teach you how to be a good mongrel and tuck your tail between your legs. What a cheap mouth. You're asking for a beating." Guang Yuan snorted coldly and strode over. "This young master is Chen Kai-fu, do you dare to touch a single hair of mine?" The young man in embroidered robes still wanted to threaten Guang Yuan, but he did not expect that Guang Yuan would directly slap him to the ground, causing him to be in so much pain that he could no longer speak. In front of spiritual ocean tier, there was naturally only one result. Could it be that this young man had the battle prowess of Ling Han? When the young man named Chen Keifu was slapped to the ground, many farmers immediately cheered in their hearts and had a very good impression of Guang Yuan all of a sudden. "You really dare to hit me?" Chen Kai-fu crawled to his feet. His face was covered in mud, and he looked incomparably wretched. His expression had also become as if he wanted to eat someone alive. "Pa!" Guang Yuan slapped him again. Chen Kai-fu fell to the ground again. This was because Guang Yuan had been merciful. Otherwise, a spiritual Sea Realm warrior would have been able to kill him in a second. "Master, please be lenient," a middle-aged medicine farmer pleaded with Guang Yuan. Guang Yuan was startled, and said, "He's about to force you guys to your deaths, and you're actually pleading for him? Young Master Fu is a powerful figure and will not lower himself to our level," the farmer said. "Sir, please let go of young Master Fu. We'll beg young Master Fu again. Young Master Fu will definitely be magnanimous and give us a way out." This was the typical character of a servant. Being forced into a dead end, he still held on to unrealistic fantasies. However, it had to be said that this kind of fantasy was very popular, and immediately caused many people to waver. They were only farmers, not warriors. Just now, they had picked up their hoes and wanted to fight with their lives on the spur of the moment, but now that they were blown by the cold wind, their courage completely disappeared. "Master, please let go of young Master Fu." Several farmers knelt down, pleading for Chen Kai-fu. Guang Yuan felt like his chest was about to explode from anger, feeling angry at these people for not living up to his expectations. He swung his hand and directly turned to leave. Out of sight, out of mind. "Ha ha ha ha, now you know you're meddling, right?" Chen Kai-fu crawled up, staring at Guang Yuan's back, and said darkly, "You want to leave after beating me? Not so easy." He pointed at Ling Han and the others, and said, "You guys are in cahoots with him, right? Hee hee, I'll remember you guys." Ling Han shook his head, and said with a smile, "Where does your sense of superiority come from? Is your brain flooded with water?" Hunyo, on the other hand, grinned. Those who dared to have evil thoughts towards Ling Han, she would definitely not let them off. "Ha, you guys know who this young master is?" Chen Kai-fu was just about to act arrogant, but unexpectedly Hunyo had already rushed out and slapped him fiercely on the face, knocking him to the ground. This was the second time, and this time, he was knocked over by a little girl. Damn it, damn it." Chen Kai-fu jumped up, his eyes so fierce that he wanted to kill someone. "Pa!" Hunyo slapped him again, and Chen Kai-fu was naturally slapped to the ground again. In front of Hunyo, he was just a dish. This made Kan Yi and Zhu Wujiu speechless. The little girl was really savage. After a few slaps, Chen Kai-fu finally became obedient, knowing that these people didn't play by the rules at all. He didn't dare to be arrogant anymore, and only humped reluctantly, his eyes resentful. Ling Han drew his sword, the cold light like water. Chen Kai-fu was finally scared, and said in a trembling voice, "What do you want to do? If he died here, how unjust would that be?" This young master. The medicine farmers were also trembling with fear. If Ling Han attacked and killed Chen Kai-fu, they wouldn't be able to escape responsibility either. "I'm warning you, my brother is Yan Fei." Pooh! Ling Han's sword fell, and blood splattered. One of Chen Kai-fu's arms was also chopped off. Ah! Chen Kai-fu instantly screamed. "Shut up!" Ling Han shouted in a deep voice. His voice was like a sword, shaking Chen Kai-fu to involuntarily stop his screams and look at Ling Han with a fearful and hateful gaze. "I didn't kill you with one strike because of these people." Ling Han pointed at the medicine farmers. "Buy the medicinal ingredients at last year's price, or else I'll find you and chop off your dog head," he said coldly. Chen Kai-fu's face twitched in pain, but in front of his life, he chose to lower his head, and nodded slightly. "Did you hear me? Answer me loudly." Ling Han waved his sword. "I heard you." Chen Kai-fu shouted loudly, tears streaming down his face. "Get lost." Ling Han put away his sword. Chen Kai-fu hurriedly turned and ran. The two servants picked up the severed arm on the ground and followed Chen Kai-fu. If the arm was immediately reattached, there was still a possibility of reattaching it. All the medicine farmers looked at Ling Han with awe, and suddenly dispersed. More than half of them ran away, leaving only a few people behind. "Thank you, young master, for your help." These people knelt down to pay their respects to Ling Han. They were still very down to earth. Chapter 285. Ling Han didn't blame these people who ran away. These were really ordinary people at the bottom of society, without any ability to resist the hegemony. They drifted with the tide and lived precariously. He waved his hand at the few people kneeling on the ground, and said, "That Chen guy, I'll take care of him for you. This young Master Fu is from the Star Brilliance Palace Hall. It's said that his position is very high, you'd better leave immediately," someone advised. "That's right, someone had a conflict with young Master Fu before, and I heard that he was very powerful. In the end, both his legs were broken, and he ran to young Master Fu to beg for forgiveness. I also heard that someone offended young Master Fu, and in the end, in order to live, he sent his wife and daughter to be violated by young Master Fu for a few days, and only then did he escape." Ling Han couldn't help but smile, and said, "That guy is a bit young, actually doing so many evil things." The few herb farmers all advised, telling Ling Han to quickly return the way he came, but their positions were too low. They only knew that Chen Kai-fu was very popular in the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, but they completely didn't know what his background was. Ling Han naturally wouldn't be afraid. He was already a high-level black-grade alchemist, and came here to be certified as an earth-grade alchemist, so he didn't need to be afraid of a profligate young master. After speaking a few words with the herb farmers, he returned to the carriage, but the two coachmen refused to carry them forward no matter what. After much persuasion, they still asked Ling Han and the others to alight, and then, as if their buttocks were on fire, they drove the carriage back. "Seems like that young man has some background," Guang Yuan said with a smile. "Coming over to bully ordinary people, his background must be limited," Zhu Wujiu interrupted. Originally, he didn't have the qualifications to speak like this to a spiritual ocean-tier martial artist, but who asked everyone to mix around for a long time, and Guang Yuan was a lone cultivator, so he didn't attach much importance to the concept of hierarchy. Ling Han didn't take it to heart and said, "Let's go, now we can only use our two legs to hurry." Right now, they were only half a day's journey away from the Star Brilliance Palace Hall. The carriage's speed wasn't fast in the first place, but it could save them a bit of energy, so it didn't matter. The group set off. Hunyeo acted coquettishly and asked Ling Han to piggyback her, then turned around and made a face at Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan, looking very pleased with herself. Then, she intimately wrapped her arms around Ling Han's neck, displaying her possessiveness to the fullest. But not long after, they encountered a wave of bandits who brazenly launched an attack, yet were all defeated by Can Yi alone. In the next hour, they encountered 7 waves of robbers, which showed how chaotic the environment was. This also proved that the Storm Mercenary Group was doing very well here. Previously, they had not encountered a single wave of bandits with the Storm flag, but now, the bandits were like a tide. Can Yi never knew when to be lenient. When he was in Huyang University, sparring with him definitely required the presence of a spiritual ocean tier elite, for fear that he would heavily injure or kill. But now that they were here, who would stop him? Ling Han didn't plan on having Can Yi be lenient. This youngster was born to be a sharp blade, and suppressing his viciousness was the same as restraining his heart of martial art. Only by letting him go could he grow into a peerlessly vicious blade. Moreover, as a bandit, one had to have the awareness of being a bandit. If he died, he deserved it. After killing another 3 waves of bandits, the remaining bandits were finally scared out of their wits, and no one else came out to seek trouble. In front, a lofty palace hall appeared before them. Rather than calling it a palace hall, it was more like a tower. The height and width were extremely disproportionate. However, in terms of architectural style, it could only be called a palace hall. The stairs were designed to encircle the outside of the palace hall, going upwards in circles. The work was extremely extravagant. The entire palace was built from piled star-flower stones. During the day, there wasn't anything special, but at night, the entire palace would emit light like a sky full of stars. The name Star Brilliance Palace Hall was true to its name. However, it was currently afternoon, and the palace hadn't displayed its majestic and spectacular side yet. From afar, it was like a tall tower casting a long shadow. This wasn't the only building in the Fallen Moon Gorge. Surrounding the palace hall were rows of streets, forming a small town that was bustling with people. This was very normal. This was the hub that connected the North region and the 9 nations of the desolate North, gathering people from all corners of the world. There were martial artists, merchants, pure adventurers, and wanted criminals. Here, everything was controlled by the Star Brilliance Palace Hall. The Star Brilliance Palace Hall was the ruler here, and the Star Brilliance Palace Hall was the law. Those who disobeyed would be killed. Entering and exiting this small town required a fee. In principle, staying in the small town meant receiving the protection of the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, but the time limit was only 3 days. After 3 days, one either had to leave or pay the fee again to continue staying. Thus, the people doing business came and went in a hurry, and the inns in the town didn't hold back when it came to fees, able to make people feel pain. Ling Han and the others arrived at the entrance of the town, and were charged according to the number of people. Even Hunyeo was no exception. Everyone was charged 100 silver coins for staying for 3 days. If they were found to still be in the town after 3 days, they would be killed without exception. It was said that the fees weren't so high in the past, and one could stay for as long as they wanted after collecting a fee once, as long as they had enough money to live in an inn. However, since half a year ago, the rules changed, causing complaints to be heard everywhere, and people were extremely dissatisfied with the Star Brilliance Palace Hall's tyranny. However, the Star Brilliance Palace Hall represented the Alchemist Society and controlled Tianyiji. At least half of the medicinal pills in the 9 nations of the desolate North were under their direct control, so even if they were tyrannical, who dared to oppose them face to face? Ling Han had Guang Yuan pay the entrance fee without missing a cent, and then found an inn to stay in. After washing off the dust and resting for a bit, Ling Han brought Zhu He Xian and Hunyeo to the Star Brilliance Palace Hall. Hunyeo couldn't be shaken off, and Zhu Hexian was an alchemist, so she wasn't completely irrelevant. The town wasn't big, so after 10 minutes or so, they arrived at the Star Brilliance Palace Hall even if they strolled slowly. Aside from being tall, the Star Brilliance Palace Hall's architectural style was very common. There were only a dozen or so steps, unlike some places that needed hundreds of steps to reach the top, filled with lofty arrogance. Pa, 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 a group of people ran out from the main hall, each and every one of them aggressive, scaring the people at the door into hurriedly dodging to the sides. The Star Brilliance Palace Hall was the Alchemist Society's highest authority in the 9 nations of the desolate north. Not only were there Earth-grade alchemists, but there were also many high-level martial artists. It was the Alchemist Society's own power, and they couldn't always ask for help whenever something happened. Alchemists' focus was on concocting pills, not fighting. It was an alchemists' organization. They might not have other things, but they definitely didn't lack money. This group of people was the Star Brilliance Palace Hall's hired thugs, but they had a very nice-sounding name, called Star Defense Force. These Star Defense Force members obviously belonged to the lower ranks, so they were especially arrogant, charging all the way like hooligans. Ling Han took a look, and couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise, because the person in the lead was actually Qin Kai Fu, who had arrived before entering the town. At this moment, his arm was actually reattached, wrapped in thick white gauze, and his face was filled with a fiendish expression. Obviously, after this guy simply reattached his severed arm, he couldn't wait to bring people out for revenge. What a bastard, hadn't he learned his lesson before? Chapter 286. Ling Han obviously wouldn't take it to heart. A dignified high-level black-grade alchemist came to the Star Brilliance Palace Hall. Would he be afraid of anyone? You. Qin Kai Fu saw Ling Han at a glance, and instantly, old and new hatred rose in his heart. He wanted to reach out and point at Ling Han, but his right arm had just been reattached, so how could he raise it? The pain made him frown, and he could only raise his left hand to point at Ling Han. How dare you, this young master was just about to find you, and you delivered yourself to me. Ling Han frowned, and said, take your hand away, I hate it when others point at me. Ha 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 ha, you're about to lose your life, so why are you still worried about other things? Qin Kai Fu snorted and snapped his fingers. The dozen or so people from the Star Defense Force instantly surrounded Ling Han. Zhu Hexian was instantly enraged, and took a step forward, saying, what do you want to do? Low-level black-grade alchemist. Qin Kai Fu saw the silver badge on Zhu Hexian's chest, and revealed a look of realization. No wonder you dare to oppose this young master, so you have a low-level black-grade alchemist to back you up. Hey, but do you know who this young master is? Ling Han patted Zhu Hexian's shoulder lightly, indicating to let him come, and said with a smile, I really don't know who you are. Humph, you broke one of this young master's arms. So what if you're a low-level black-grade alchemist, this young master will definitely kill you. Qin Kai Fu said harshly. He'd never suffered such great humiliation. Not only was his life threatened, he even lost an arm. Fortunately, he had countless high-level medicinal pills that reattached his severed arm, or else he'd hate Ling Han to the point of exterminating his entire clan. Kill these two for me, kill them both. He pointed at Ling Han and Zhu Hexian, and when he saw Hun Yo on Ling Han's back, he immediately said, and this damn girl, young Master Fu. The people from the Star Defense Force were somewhat hesitant. After all, there was a low-level black-grade alchemist, and they didn't dare to be rash. Hang, my brother is a black-grade high-level alchemist, what is there to be afraid of? Qin Kai Fu said proudly. Ling Han and Zhu Hexian both came to a sudden realization. No wonder this guy dared to be so arrogant, so it turned out that he had an elder brother who was a black-grade high-level alchemist. In the 9 nations of the desolate north, a black-grade high-level alchemist could be called a big shot, and was indeed very awesome. But the only one who was awesome was his brother, not him. Judging from his age, his brother should be around 30 years old. He does have some talent, Ling Han said to Zhu Hexian. Although alchemy was similar to martial art in that the earlier one was, the faster one's progress would be, a black-grade high-level alchemist in his 30s was still extremely shocking. Zhu Hexian thought for a moment, then said, could the one with the surname Qing be Qing Fei Jun? He is indeed a genius of alchemy. From what I know, he became a black-grade low-level alchemist 7 years ago. At that time, he was only 23, and 2 years ago, he took another step forward and became a black-grade middle-level alchemist. Although it was publicly acknowledged that he would definitely become a black-grade high-level alchemist, advancing in just 2 years is truly unexpected. A 30-year-old black-grade high-level alchemist, too shocking. He sighed, then glanced at Ling Han and couldn't help but laugh. In comparison, this guy was even more freakish. Ling Han immediately had a guess, and said, it should be that Qing Fei Jun's luck is nature-defying, and he fused with a strange fire. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to become a black-grade middle-level alchemist in 5 years, and then leap to high level in 2 years. Young Master Han is right. Zhu Hexian nodded in agreement. You, guys. Chen Kai Fu stomped his feet in anger. These two actually minded their own business and talked, completely disregarding him, too infuriating. Kill them, kill them. Seeing that the people of the Star Defense Force were ready to make a move, Ling Han smiled and said, I say, who the hell are you to command the Star Defense Force? Are you a black-grade low-level alchemist or a high-level alchemist? Old Zhu, you're a genuine black-grade low-level alchemist, these Star Defense Force should listen to you, right? Zhu Hexian said, I'm Zhu Hexian, I order you guys, immediately retreat. He was still quite dignified, and under his angry gaze and reprimand, everyone in the Star Defense Force involuntarily took a few steps back. After all, the money for their meals was given by the alchemist, so they couldn't turn around and bite the owner, right? What's there to be proud of? My brother is Qing Fei Jun. When he sees my brother, he has to step aside and obediently call him master. Chen Kai Fu was not the slightest afraid, and pointed with his finger, saying, kill them, I'll bear all the consequences. Under his stern urging, the people of the Star Defense Force once again took a step forward, ready to attack. Ling Han shook his head, and said, I originally wanted to give you a chance, but since you don't know how to cherish it, then I can only kill you. He sighed. Actually, he wanted to kill this young thug earlier, but he showed mercy because of the farmer's bitter pleas, because he didn't want them to be implicated. But now that Qing Kai Fu wanted to seek his own death, he wouldn't be lenient. Kill, kill, kill. Qing Kai Fu said sternly. The dozen or so people of the Star Defense Force finally attacking Ling Han and Zhu Hexian. However, Zhu Hexian still held the title of a black-grade low-level alchemist after all, so the Star Defense Force vented most of their attacks on Ling Han. Hunyo never saw her attack, so who would take a little girl seriously? But they were obviously wrong. Seeing that they actually dared to attack Ling Han, Hunyo's ferocity instantly erupted. Xiao, she pounced out, turning into a stream of light. Pa, 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 she waved her claws continuously, bringing forth streaks of blood light. Screams rang out, and the Star Defense Force fell to the ground one by one, all heavily injured by Hunyo. Fortunately, the little girl's ferocity was still the same, but her murderous nature was greatly reduced. She only dealt heavy blows, but didn't kill, so all the members of the Star Defense Force were still alive. What? Chen Kai Fu's face was full of shock and disbelief. He knew that Hunyo was a bit strong, but to the extent that she could fight 1 against 10 was still greatly beyond his expectations. He hurriedly broke into a run. Behind him was the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, and there were many experts overseeing inside. Casually inviting a few would be enough to suppress everything. Usually, he couldn't command these people, but now that Ling Han fought his way to the entrance of the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, how could these experts just watch idly? However, the moment he moved, someone already blocked him in front. Ling Han. People like you living in this world will only waste food, better die. Ling Han's killing intent boiled. Hee, young man, don't be too angry, let's talk nicely. A friendly voice called out, and a fat ball-like middle-aged man also walked out from the main hall. His height was actually about the same. Captain Meng, quickly help me kill him. Chen Kai-fu hurriedly shouted. Meng Mao Kai. Zhu Hexian swept a glance, and interrupted, this boy isn't a member of the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, since when can he command the Star Defense Force? Master Zhu. The fatty nodded slightly at Zhu Hexian, then smiled bitterly. He's Master Cheng's younger brother, even I have to give him face. However, I have to give Master Zhu face too. How about this, everyone put down their weapons and sit down to talk. Harmony breeds wealth, after all. Chapter 287. A Beautiful Romance. This white-clothed woman was like an immortal. Every step she took was graceful and graceful. She was dignified and quiet, but her figure was really too moving. Her thighs were long and slender, enough to reach the waist of an expert of the same height. The longer a woman's legs were, the more attractive her figure would be. On her body, it was simply perfect. Just the way she walked would give rise to endless fantasies. Her willowy waist was slender, but her buttocks were protruding high, revealing astonishing curves. She exuded a sexy charm, but she wasn't too great. Her neck was like jade, and she was as noble as a swan. Her black hair was like a waterfall, tied up by a snow-white ribbon. She didn't have a single ornament on her body, but it gave others the feeling that this was the most perfect. That was because any ornament on her body would only make her appear tacky. Ling Han was surprised. True enough, this woman didn't need to reveal a shred of her appearance, and she could give others the feeling that she was as beautiful as a goddess. The only second woman that he had felt this way on was the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. However, he had seen the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's appearance, and she was indeed a match for that perfect figure of hers. In terms of appearance alone, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was indeed the most beautiful in the world. In fact, she was so beautiful that she shouldn't appear in the mortal world. However, Ling Han sighed. Why was this woman so violent? She would occasionally come to his place and randomly take things, and when he tried to reason with her, he would be threatened with her gaze. Moreover, his 4 disciples had also been thrashed by her in turn. In terms of reverence, Ling Han could pat his chest and say that his 4 disciples were definitely more obedient to the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's words. Your mouth says that you don't want to, but your eyes are quite honest. You know that Fairy Zhu is a peerless beauty, right? Gong Lishan's voice rang out by Ling Han's ear, rousing him from his memories. Ling Han only smiled, and didn't explain himself. In his mind, he was still thinking that if his strength surpassed the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maidens, then marrying such a wife wouldn't be too bad. She'd be pleasing to the eyes. However, strength was a guarantee. Otherwise, he would be suppressed by the other party. Who knew, when they were having sex at night, he would also be the one lying on the bed. Once Zhu Xian'er arrived, she immediately became the center of attention. She was like a natural goddess, and anyone in front of her would pale in comparison. Moreover, her elegant demeanor was too moving, so much so that others couldn't even feel jealous. No matter if they were male or female, they all looked at her with fanatical gazes, as if they would be willing to go through fire and water for her with a single command from her. Ling Han was secretly surprised. This was too crazy, wasn't it? He definitely wouldn't do such a thing. Xian'er is very happy to be able to see all of you young prodigies today. Here's a toast to everyone. Zhu Xian'er raised her wine cup, and instantly, everyone looked overwhelmed by the unexpected favor, and hurriedly raised their wine cups as well. As Zhu Xian'er lifted up a corner of her white veil, revealing her snow-white chin and crimson lips, it was as if everyone had been injected with chicken blood. Some people even spat out blood from their noses, and some people were so excited that they fainted. Everyone drained the wine in their cups in one gulp. They felt that to be able to receive a toast from Zhu Xian'er, even if they died in this life, it would be completely worth it. Ling Han's heart also fluttered slightly. Although Zhu Xian'er's face was not completely revealed, merely her chin, her small mouth, and that absolutely beautiful proportions were enough to form a picture of a beautiful woman in one's mind. Just this corner alone was enough for Ling Han to confirm that Zhu Xian'er's beauty was far above that of Lu Yutong and the other girls, and was even qualified to compete with the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. However, if she wanted to move Ling Han's heart, that was something impossible. It couldn't be helped. Who asked him to see the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden every few days in his last life? Moreover, she did things that made him extremely depressed, so he couldn't like her even if he wanted to. With this kind of inoculation, so what if Zhu Xian'er was the second Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden? Zhu Xian'er offered a toast and put down the white veil. Instantly, everyone felt a strong reluctance to part with her, feeling a sense of loss as if someone had gouged out their hearts, causing them to lose the thing they loved the most. She opened her mouth and said, "Xian'er wants to purchase a medicinal ingredient from everyone. If you don't have it, then it's fine if you have information on the whereabouts of the medicinal ingredient. Xian'er will reward you handsomely. Fairy Zhu, feel free to speak." "Right, to be able to serve Fairy Zhu, that would be our honor. Going through water and treading on fire, 10,000 deaths without hesitation." Everyone called out one after another, and even quite a few girls' faces were filled with fanaticism. Zhu Xian'er's pretty face did not show any expression, and she said, "The ingredient Xian'er wants is a 7th-level medicinal herb called Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass." Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass? What's that? Never heard of it. Quite a few people immediately shook their heads, but Ling Han was startled, because Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass was precisely one of the 2 main ingredients he needed. He never thought that he would actually come into conflict with Zhu Xian'er. If the 2 of them competed, it could be imagined that there would definitely be countless people who would hate him. Who cared? So what if she was an exquisite beauty? She couldn't even compare to a single hair of his old man. "Fairy Zhu, I know where the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass is." A youngster stood up very excitedly. Without needing to be urged, he had already spilled the beans. 3 months ago, I just came out of the Dark Demon Forest, and heard someone mention the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass. That should be in the depths of the Dark Demon Forest. Hiss. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. The Dark Demon Forest was one of the more famous danger zones in the North region. There were flower blossom tier beasts in the depths of the forest, and normally, no one dared to enter deep into the forest. "Fairy Zhu, the Dark Demon Forest is too dangerous, why don't you wait 2 years before going?" "Nonsense, Fairy Zhu needs the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass to save someone, can she afford to wait 2 years? Then do you want Fairy Zhu to enter the depths of the Dark Demon Forest and risk her life? That's losing her life." "That's right, in another 2 years, maybe Fairy Zhu can advance into the Flower Blossom tier, and by then, there'll be no need to fear." Ling Han, however, felt a rush of eagerness. There was actually Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass in the Dark Demon Forest, and he received orders to pick 7 stalks of Fiery Sun Grass. Originally, he had no intention of paying attention to it, but now, it was as if there was an invisible hand pushing him. Come, he had to go to the Dark Demon Forest. Zhu Xian'er was a bit worried at first. That person publicly revealed the whereabouts of the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass, which might cause trouble. But thinking again, how many people dared to enter the Dark Demon Forest? She thanked that person, and promised that if he encountered any trouble in the future, he could go to the Half Moon sect to find her. Because she was in a hurry to find the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass, she soon bid farewell and left. Once she left, the atmosphere at the scene instantly plummeted. Everyone was in no mood, and many people also exchanged for the treasures they fancied, so they bid farewell and left one after another. Ling Han was also very satisfied. On this trip, he not only obtained the gold silk thousand spark fruit, but also news of the crimson red chilling ice grass. When he returned, he would refine the gold silk thousand spark fruit. Chapter 288. Martial art and alchemy were the same, they both needed a long time to increase their tier and rush to the peak. In fact, alchemy couldn't be achieved quickly. This was because there were spiritual medicines and spiritual fruits in this world. Eating a single one of them would allow one's cultivation to skyrocket, allowing one to become an expert overnight. However, there was definitely no such good item that could allow an alchemist's skills to increase greatly in just a few short days. Even with the existence of strange fire, it only allowed alchemists to refine high-tier medicinal pills at low tiers. It still required sufficient understanding of alchemy, and it wasn't something that could allow alchemists to soar in a single step. Ling Han wasn't even 20 yet and was already a black-grade medium-level alchemist. It had to be a joke. If there was such a genius, wouldn't the news have spread throughout the world long ago? How could it be unheard of? I was almost fooled by you, actually daring to pretend to be an alchemist. How dare you? Cheng Fei-jun said darkly. His younger brother was captured and even had an arm cut off, making him extremely furious. Ling Han smiled faintly, pointed at his chest, and said, "Open your dog eyes wide and look carefully, this is fake." Dog eyes. Everyone's mouths twitched. He actually dared to speak like that to a black-grade high-level alchemist. This brat was truly audacious. "Youngster, take out your alchemist proof," the spiritual pedestal tier elite said to Ling Han. Badges could be forged, but alchemist proof couldn't. There was complete information on it, and it could be verified immediately. Cheng Fei-jun sneered, and said, "So what if you're a black-grade medium-level alchemist, you still have to listen to my orders." TSK, tisk. Ling Han wagged his finger, and said, "Which ear of yours heard me say that I'm a black-grade medium-level alchemist? You really are an idiot." Ignoring the furious Cheng Fei-jun, he took out the third silver badge and wore it on his chest. 3 silver badges, the same as Cheng Fei-jun, impossible. Everyone said the same word in their hearts, there definitely never was such a young black-grade high-level alchemist. Ha! Cheng Fei-jun sneered. As soon as Ling Han took out the second silver badge, he already didn't believe it. Ha! Qian and Yang, the 2 spiritual pedestal tier elites, were slightly startled as they suddenly thought of a person. Bullshit, do you think that just because you wear 3 silver badges, you can pretend to be a black-grade high-level alchemist? The person who had bootlicked Cheng Fei-jun immediately jumped out again, pointing at Ling Han as he shouted. Ling Han sighed and said, "Haven't I told you before that I hate it when people point at me?" "Young man, is your surname Ling?" The spiritual pedestal tier elite with the surname Qian suddenly interrupted. Ling Han. Cheng Fei-jun's expression immediately changed. He also thought of a person. "Ling Han, you are Ling Han." His face was full of anger. Half a year ago, he successfully advanced to become a black-grade high-level alchemist, creating a new record in the desolate north. And a 30-year-old black-grade high-level alchemist, even in a large place like the North region, was quite impressive. There were very few people who could surpass him. But his complacency only lasted for a few months. Very soon, another young genius appeared out of nowhere and became a black-grade high-level alchemist. Moreover, he was even younger than him, so much so that he could not believe his own eyes. 17 years old. In the beginning, not to mention him, even many people in the Star Brilliance Palace Hall doubted the authenticity of this matter, but with Fu Yuansheng's handwritten letter and the joint guarantee of many black-grade middle-level alchemists, people could only believe it. From then on, Cheng Fei-jun hated Ling Han for robbing him of his glory. Otherwise, how dazzling would he be with the glory of being the youngest black-grade high-level alchemist? This hateful guy, robbing him of his glory was not bad, but today, he ran to his territory, injured his younger brother, and still wanted to step on his face in public? He definitely would not allow it. I am Ling Han. Ling Han took out the crystal that could prove one's identity as an alchemist, and infused his origin power into it. Instantly, a screen of light was formed, and on it was clearly written Ling Han's level as an alchemist, as well as where and when he had broken through, as well as the witnesses at that time. Everyone cried out in shock, because this was only a matter of 1 or 2 months. The majority of people still did not know of Ling Han's existence, and could not help but stare dumbfoundedly at Ling Han. Too young, so young that people could not accept it. A 30-year-old black-grade high-level alchemist like Qing Fei Jun would scare people every time they saw him, sighing at his youth. But Ling Han? 17 years old, 18 years old. Heavens! Let go of my younger brother first. Qing Fei Jun said through gritted teeth. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, if I let him go just because you say so, how embarrassing would that be for me, Ling Han? Qing Fei Jun's eyes spewed fire. What do you want? At this time, Qian and Yang, the 2 spiritual pedestal tier warriors, sat on the sidelines and watched. No matter if it was Ling Han or Qing Fei Jun, they were both black-grade high-level alchemists with the same status and boundless future prospects, so it was not worth offending either one. Ling Han smiled, and said, you finally asked the main point. This guy obviously did all kinds of bad things, but I just came, so I don't know how evil he is, nor do I have the time to investigate. However, it is a fact that this guy tried to kill me. And he actually tried to kill an alchemist. That's a capital offense, am I right? My younger brother doesn't know your identity at all, his crime is pardonable. Qing Fei Jun immediately said. If you say it can be forgiven, then it can be forgiven. It's not like you were threatened by this trash. Ling Han sneered. There's no need to trouble the Star Defense Force. This person plotted to kill an alchemist, so I declare immediate execution. You dare, you dare. Qing Fei Jun stomped his feet, and said sternly, Ling Han, do you want to form a death grudge with me? And who are you? Ling Han sneered, his face full of disdain. You dare insult me. Qing Fei Jun stomped in rage, the veins on his neck bulging. I won't lower myself to your level, quickly let go of my younger brother. Ling Han laughed, and said, I found that you have quite the talent for making jokes, but unfortunately, I don't appreciate it at all. His right hand shook, and instantly, a long sword appeared out of thin air. With his identity as a black-grade high-level alchemist, he was no longer afraid of others knowing that he had a spatial ring. Brother, save me, save me. Chen Kai Fu sensed Ling Han's dense killing intent, and instantly waved his arms and cried out in fear. However, his right arm had just been reattached, so how could it withstand such violent movements? His arm was instantly severed at the shoulder, and fresh blood gushed out. Pooh! Without waiting for him to cry out in pain, Ling Han's sword had already slashed down, slicing open his neck. Chen Kai Fu's mouth gurgled with blood, and he extended his hand towards Qing Fei Jun, but he only raised it halfway before it drooped down powerlessly. Little brother! Qing Fei Jun shouted sternly, his eyes spitting fire. Ling Han, I swear to never coexist with you. Ha! Ling Han shrugged indifferently, and said, I'll make a bet with you. Later, you have to obediently kneel in front of me and call me Grandmaster Ling. Bullshit. Qing Fei Jun immediately spat. How could he possibly kneel in front of the enemy who killed his younger brother and suffer humiliation? How about it, do you want to bet or not? If you win, I'll give you this strange fire, and on the other hand, you have to give me that strange fire of yours. Ling Han finally revealed his true motive. Chapter 289. Qing Fei Jun was only at the 7th layer of the Gushing Spring tier. Logically, he could only refine black-grade middle-level medicinal pills, but since he could become a high-level black-grade alchemist, it meant that he definitely fused with a strange fire to achieve a breakthrough. Although Ling Han had a ball of strange fire, he didn't mind making this strange fire stronger. Cheng Fei Jun's gaze was gloomy, and his face revealed a moved expression. Ling Han could guess that he had a strange fire, so he obviously could guess as well, because Ling Han's tier was lower, only at the first layer of the gushing spring tier. If Ling Han didn't have this strange fire, would he still have the qualifications to be called a high-level black-grade alchemist? At that time, he only had to request a re-examination, and Ling Han couldn't refine a high-level black-grade medicinal pill, naturally being stripped of the corresponding alchemist rank. As long as the alchemist's rank was lower than his, he could think of a way to slowly kill Ling Han. The hatred of killing his brother was absolutely irreconcilable, and he had to make Ling Han die. Alright, I'll bet. He clenched his teeth, not believing that something that could make him kneel down would happen. There was only one possibility, and that was Ling Han advancing to become an Earth-grade alchemist. The question was this possible? Lords, please be the witnesses, Cheng Fei Jun said again. He was afraid that Ling Han would act shamelessly if he lost. Ha ha ha, I'm also afraid you'll act shamelessly, go invite them. Ling Han laughed loudly. Seeing that Ling Han was so certain, Cheng Fei Jun couldn't help but be startled. Could it be that this guy could really advance to become an Earth-grade alchemist? Impossible, definitely impossible. A 17-year-old Earth-grade alchemist, he must be dreaming. Moreover, the most important point was that alchemists who wanted to be certified as black-grade and above had to prepare their own materials, and Earth-grade materials were extremely precious. He did not believe that Ling Han had prepared the materials, because this was obviously an unexpected incident. So, even if Ling Han really had the ability to break through to become an Earth-grade alchemist, what could he do without the corresponding materials? Thinking this way, Cheng Fei Jun recovered his confidence, and hurriedly had the spiritual pedestal tier elite surnamed Xian invite a few Earth-grade alchemists to act as witnesses. Originally, a wager between two black-grade high-level alchemists could not possibly alarm an Earth-grade alchemist, but who asked these two people to be too young, their futures boundless, and it was almost certain that they would become Earth-grade alchemists in the future. Thus, the Earth-grade alchemists were happy to give face and join in the fun. There were a total of 3 Earth-grade alchemists in the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, but they were all low-level Earth-grade, middle-level, and high-level Earth-grade alchemists couldn't possibly appear in such a small place like the 9 nations of the desolate North, and there wasn't a single Heaven-grade alchemist in the entire North region. These 3 Earth-grade alchemists were respectively Long Yong Chang, Li Siyuan, and Yunxing Xian. Their cultivation was all in the spiritual pedestal tier, and the youngest one was already over 60 years old, but he was still called a genius of alchemy because he completed the step of Earth-grade alchemist at the age of 50, which was very difficult. Unfortunately, if one did not break through to the flower blossom tier, their lifespan would be limited, and they might not have any hope of becoming an Earth-grade mid-level alchemist in this lifetime. Greetings to the 3 lords. When these 3 people appeared, everyone bowed in greeting, and even Cheng Fei Jun was no exception. In the world of alchemy, if they were all of yellow grade, black grade, earth grade, or heaven grade, then low-level alchemists only needed to cup their fists in greeting when meeting high-level alchemists. However, if there was a big gap, then even if a black grade high-level alchemist met a low-level earth grade alchemist, they needed to kneel in greeting. This was the basic etiquette for alchemists. The arrogant and conceited Cheng Fei Jun, before breaking through to earth grade, had to be respectful in front of the 3 great alchemists. Only Ling Han didn't move. When Cheng Fei Jun saw this, he instantly snorted coldly and said, "Ling Han, you're quite daring to not greet the 3 great alchemists." Long Yong Chang and the other 2 were originally a bit displeased, thinking that Ling Han was young and proud. Wasn't he a bit too arrogant? When they heard Cheng Fei Jun's words, they naturally disliked Ling Han even more, and their expressions instantly darkened. Ling Han looked at Cheng Fei Jun disdainfully and said, who do you think you are? What does it matter to you whether I greet you or not? Since you're so well behaved, very good, pay your respects to me properly later. He paused, clasped his hands in greeting towards Long Yong-chang and the other two, and said, Brothers, I want to be certified as an earth-grade alchemist. A single stone raises 1,000 ripples. Although everyone knew that the only way for Ling Han to make Ching Fei Jun kneel and win the bet was to become an earth-grade alchemist, hearing a 17-year-old youngster say he wanted to be certified as an earth-grade alchemist with their own ears still made everyone's scalp tingle. He really was a monster. Zhu He-xian was naturally full of confidence. Ling Han concocted a pseudo-earth-grade foundation building pill when he was in the poly tier, and now that he advanced into the gushing spring tier, concocting a true earth-grade medicinal pill definitely wouldn't be difficult. After all, when Ling Han concocted the foundation building pill, it was extremely easy, and not only was the success rate high, the grade of the completed pill reached 13 stars. This was something only an earth-grade alchemist, or even a middle-level earth-grade alchemist could do. Needless to say, Hunyo continuously bared her teeth at the people around her, looking furious. These guys actually dared to stare at Nyo's Ling Han with hatred, too hateful. The three earth-grade alchemists were all shocked. Certifying as an earth-grade alchemist, a 17-year-old youngster, they all felt as if they had instantly aged. They had no choice but to be convinced. They already knew Ling Han was young, but seeing it with their own eyes still shocked them. This youngster's childishness hadn't even faded, and his body hadn't fully matured, but he was already a high-level black-grade alchemist, just one step away from becoming a true big boss of alchemy. They didn't expect that this brat actually opened his mouth shockingly, wanting to certify as an earth-grade alchemist. No wonder he bowed to them as equals. Was he certain that he would succeed? However, certifying as a high-level alchemist was every alchemist's basic right, and no one could stop it. Thus, after the three great alchemists discussed among themselves, Long Yong-chang said, I'm not approved, but you have to prepare your own materials. To certify as an earth-grade alchemist, the materials had to be prepared by oneself, or else who would bear the loss if the furnace exploded? I'm prepared. Ling Han smiled. This wasn't nonsense. If it wasn't his own materials, the refined pill would have to be given to the Star Brilliance Pavilion. At most, he'd take some token compensation, but that would be a huge loss. Then let's enter the alchemy room. Li Siyuan nodded. The three earth-grade alchemists took the lead, and the others followed behind. A cold smirk appeared at the corner of Ching Fei Jun's mouth. He didn't believe that Ling Han had prepared enough materials, and even more so didn't believe that he had the qualifications to become an earth-grade alchemist at such a young age. This must be Ling Han's youthful vigor, and he wanted to take a gamble. He wasn't afraid. Very soon, they arrived outside an alchemy room. Different from normal alchemy rooms, the four walls here were transparent. However, if one walked inside, they wouldn't be able to see the situation outside at all, and wouldn't be afraid of affecting their own alchemy. The cost of building this alchemy room was very high. Firstly, it was used to certify alchemists, and could be witnessed by others, and secondly, it was used for high-level alchemists to appear, cast their arts, and concoct alchemical pills as a demonstration. Ling Han walked into the alchemy room without hesitation. Chapter 290. Hunyo was unwilling to be left to the side, and insisted on following into the pill room. Ling Han didn't mind, and let her follow in. Anyway, if she didn't help concoct pills later, it wouldn't be considered breaking the rules. Quite a few people immediately shook their heads. Concocting pills required concentration, and letting a mischievous little girl in would only have to shout later, and that distraction would definitely cause the furnace to explode. Concocting an earth-grade medicinal pill, if it failed, the loss would make one's heart bleed just thinking about it. However, the person concocting the pill was Ling Han, and he didn't have any objections, so who would ask for trouble? Only Ching Fei Jun sneered, and his confidence obviously increased a bit. In principle, the time limit for concocting pills is 1 day and 1 night, but it can be relaxed to 2 days, Yun Xingxian said. What medicinal pill do you plan to concoct? 7 turns break crisis pill, Ling Han said, and with a casual fling, a large amount of medicinal ingredients spread out on the ground. Since he specifically came here to be certified as an Earth-grade alchemist, he obviously prepared all the ingredients beforehand. However, Rain Country's resources were limited, so he obviously couldn't collect them all. However, he entered Devil Sky Mystery Realm and obtained several spirit medicines, which he transplanted into the Black Tower. After so many days, they almost reached the age to be used as medicine, so Ling Han matched them according to the spirit medicines, looking for supplementary ingredients, and finally decided to concoct 7 turns break crisis pill, which was also the only Earth-grade medicinal pill he could concoct with the ingredients he had. 7 turns break crisis pill. The 3 Earth-grade alchemists all exclaimed. That's a pill that can allow flower blossom tier elites to walk out of the danger of going mad, and can even turn misfortune into fortune, increasing comprehension towards cultivation. The other alchemists obviously heard of it, and nodded incessantly. 7 turns break crisis pill was a true low-level Earth-grade medicinal pill, and its preciousness could be ranked at the top of this tier. This kind of medicinal pill, even Long Yongzhang and the other big shots probably didn't have the ability to concoct it, right? The sneer at the corner of Cheng Fei Jun's mouth became even wider. Previously, when he saw that Ling Han actually prepared the materials, he was a bit surprised, but when he heard that Ling Han actually wanted to concoct the 7 turns break crisis pill, he laughed. Is it possible? Even if the 3 alchemy giants here were to refine it, it would be a miracle if they could succeed once out of 10 times. High-grade pills like this were made with a huge amount of raw materials. Who knew how many materials were wasted behind a successful pill? A young man like you dares to say that you want to refine the 7 turns break adversity pill? What's more, there was a little girl in the pill room. She was a restless master. One moment, she was in Ling Han's arms, the next moment, she was lying on his back, and the next moment, she was sitting on his lap. How could she refine pills? Do you really think you're the god of alchemy? Ling Han is really something. Shall we start now? Long Yongzhang asked Ling Han. Let's begin. Ling Han nodded and waved his right hand. Pa, the door to the pill room was closed. Long Yongzhang nodded at one of them. Immediately, a huge hourglass appeared and started counting. He began to sort the materials. Ling Han immediately began to move. Shwa, 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 like flowing water, he sorted and removed the impurities. That kind of strong rhythm gave people a supreme sense of beauty, causing the alchemists outside to be intoxicated. Heavens, sorting materials can be done like this? I've really lived so many years in vain. That kind of smoothness, even the 3 lords can't do it, right? Sure. It's completely unbelievable that this is a mere 17-year-old young man. Everyone exclaimed in shock. They were subdued by Ling Han in just a moment. That was natural. When the alchemy emperor made a move, it would be strange if he didn't have such an effect. Even Long Yongzhang and the other 2 couldn't help but move their hands. They secretly decided that even if Ling Han failed to break through to Earth grade, they would still take good care of him. This young man was too miraculous, and they definitely had to have a good spar with him in handling materials. Only Zhu Hexian revealed a proud expression. A bunch of country bumpkins, when you go to young Master Han to extract the medicinal ingredients later, won't you all be so shocked that you'll spit out your tongues? Ling Han very quickly entered the purification stage. Pooh! Instantly, over a dozen people spluttered, and those who didn't were all dumbfounded. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why did I feel like he purified all 9 materials together? My eyes are playing tricks on me too. It's not my eyes playing tricks on me, it's real. He really purified all 9 materials together. Heavens, why hasn't the medicinal properties been destroyed? Although there's a layer of black crystal wall separating us, I can be 100% sure that there's absolutely no loss of medicinal properties. What a freak. The faces of the three big shots of alchemy twitched. If it was said that the previous sorting of medicinal ingredients was only a strong sense of rhythm, then now, it really gave them a shock. So, purification could be done like this. They were all earth-grade alchemists, and thought highly of themselves, but now, they all felt like they were little schoolchildren who had just stepped onto the path of alchemy, developing a new understanding of these basic movements. Lived so many years in vain. Ling Han didn't care about everyone's astonishment. After purifying all the materials one by one, his left hand shook, and Hong, the strange fire already came out from the black tower, adhering to his hand and soaring with astonishing flames. The pill concoction officially began. He'd already stepped into the gushing spring tier, and after so many days, he'd already reached the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier. His ability to stimulate and control the temperature of fire naturally increased greatly, and his tolerance towards the temperature of fire also increased greatly. Strange fire. Truly a person blessed by the heavens. Yes, or else no matter how much of a genius you are, under the cultivation limit, the gushing spring tier can at most refine black-grade medium-level medicinal pills. When it came to the strange fire, quite a few people's gazes swept towards Cheng Fei Jun. This guy also had a strange fire, which allowed him to refine black-grade high-level medicinal pills at the gushing spring tier, wearing the halo of an alchemy genius. However, if Ling Han succeeded in passing the Earth-grade alchemist test, according to the agreement, Cheng Fei Jun would have to give the strange fire to Ling Han, and in this way, his alchemist level would definitely drop by 1 level. Today, one of these two young alchemy grandmasters would definitely fall from his pedestal. The difference was that if Ling Han failed, Cheng Fei Jun would only stay where he was, but if Ling Han succeeded, then a legend would be created. A 17-year-old Earth-grade alchemist. Just thinking about it made one's scalp numb. After acting coquettishly for a while, seeing that Ling Han ignored her, Hun Yo was instantly unhappy, rubbing her little belly, and said, "Nyo is hungry." Ling Han nodded, his left hand still concocting pills, while his right hand casually took out the food prepared in the Black Tower. He started a fire, set up a barbecue rack, put a piece of pork on it, and began to roast it. Poo, pu, pu. Everyone choked, and their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Were you really concocting pills? Why did you start a barbecue as you were concocting? How hungry were you exactly? Chapter 291. Pooh, Ling Han instantly spat out a mouthful of wine. This woman's boldness was a little unbearable. He felt that only Gu Fenghua, that freak, could be a match for her. Seeing Yin Hong even say such words, Zhu Xian'er could not hide her curiosity. She picked up the small piece of meat on the table and slightly lifted the white veil, revealing her exquisite and beautiful red lips. She opened her mouth slightly, revealing her snow-white teeth that looked like they had been carved meticulously, astonishingly beautiful. She placed the piece of meat into her mouth, then put down the white veil and began to chew lightly. Instantly, it made one feel endless pity, wanting to take another look at it. She was not as exaggerated as Yin Hong, but her eyes still revealed an astonished splendor. This kind of delicacy was indeed something she had never seen before in her life, making her feel an urge to taste it again at all costs. However, she was Zhu Xian'er, after all. Very soon, she suppressed this urge to the bottom of her heart and once again became indifferent. Compared to enjoyment, she still had an important responsibility. Younger sister Zhu, why don't you just marry young Master Ling? Yin Hong's words were extremely shocking. Young Master Ling is only 17 years old, and is already an Earth-grade low-level alchemist. Going by this speed, he would probably be able to become a heaven-grade alchemist at around 30 years old. You can just directly find him to concoct alchemical pills for you. Moreover, following him and having such delicious food to eat, this life would be worth it. She laughed mischievously, looked at Ling Han with a bit of flattery, and said, "Young Master Ling, I'll kidnap a wife for you. Can you give me more of this kind of jerky?" These words instantly provoked two people, Zhu Xian'er and Hun Yo. Zhu Xian'er was fine. After all, she was an adult and could control herself, though her gaze was a bit cold. However, Hun Yo had a fiery temper, and immediately pounced out from Ling Han's embrace. Xiao, her small figure flashed, and appeared in front of Yin Hong, waving a claw at her chest. Hiss! How could the two girls have expected that Hun Yo was actually an elite? She was extremely strange. Even if Ling Han had a sliver of heaven-tier divine sense, he could not see through her at all, let alone the two girls. A spiritual ocean-tier elite suddenly launched an attack, and Yin Hong was not the least bit on guard. With a ripping sound, the clothes on her chest were immediately torn apart, but immediately afterward, a white brilliance flashed and formed a light screen, forcibly blocking Hun Yo's small hand. "Nyo, stop!" Ling Han hurriedly shouted. Only then did Hun Yo turn around and fall back into Ling Han's embrace. She made a face at Yin Hong, still in a bad mood. The white light on Yin Hong's chest also dispersed. Because her clothes were torn, her snow-white skin could be vaguely seen, but what was surprising was that there were actually lines on her skin, as if they were tattoos. Formation patterns. Ling Han had the experience of heaven tier, and his eyes immediately lit up as he fixed his gaze on them. In his last life, formations had already been lost and declined, and he could only come across them when he explored ancient sites. However, Ling Han could only decipher them, and what he could set up himself was only an early warning formation. However, in ancient times, formations were on par with martial arts and alchemy. Once a grandmaster of formations made a move, they could directly trap and kill tens or even hundreds of martial artists of the same tier, so their power was definitely top-notch. He was very interested in formations, but in his last life, all his energy was placed on alchemy, and he had no time to study formations. Secondly, there were no grandmasters of formations that he could ask for guidance, nor were there any secret manuals of formations left behind from ancient times, so how could he learn? He had never thought that he would actually be able to meet a grandmaster of formations now. As expected of the golden age of martial arts where hundreds of flowers bloomed. Not only were there freaks like Rong Huanxian, Yan Tianzhao, Ma Duobao, and Hun Yo, there were also grandmasters of formations that had disappeared long ago. "Why are you staring so intently? Do you want me to take off my clothes and let you stare to your heart's content?" Yin Hong said through gritted teeth. Although there was a smile at the corners of her lips, there was a dangerous aura exuding from her. Ling Han did not withdraw his gaze. He was completely uninterested in Yin Hong's body, and only wanted the formation patterns on her body. He had seen quite a few formations in his last life, but this was the first time he had seen the formation patterns that were engraved on her body. "Formations are indeed not a bad thing," Ling Han said. "If you don't mind, then take off your clothes and let me study them properly." "Get lost." Yin Hong hurriedly covered her chest and fled into the house. Naturally, she was going to change into new clothes. Zhu Xian'er looked at Hun Yo in great shock. She could not see through Hun Yo, and only thought that she did not cultivate at all. Who would have thought that she would be so greatly mistaken? Not only had she awakened her spirit base, but she was also in the spiritual ocean tier. 5 or 6 years old and in the spiritual ocean tier, what kind of concept was that? In comparison, her cultivation level was not even worth mentioning, the difference was far, far too great. In the world of martial arts, those below the flower blossom tier were all ants, all mortals. Conversely, it could also be said that the first 5 tiers were relatively simple, and it was not strange to see a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator at such a young age, but a spiritual ocean tier cultivator who was only 5 or 6 years old. How could she not be shocked? Hun Yo's senses were astonishing, and she immediately discovered Zhu Xian'er's gaze. She made a face at the latter, appearing to be very hostile. Ling Han smiled, and said, Miss Zhu, what do you need the crimson red chilling ice grass for? Zhu Xian'er was slightly surprised, and said, so you were also there that day. She paused, and continued, I need to concoct a heaven-grade medicinal pill, and the crimson red chilling ice grass is one of the supplementary ingredients. The crimson red chilling ice grass could only be used as a supplementary ingredient. Who asked it to be a heaven-grade medicinal pill? Ling Han felt it was strange, and said, I heard that your master has gone mad, but I think that a medium-level earth grade, or at most high level, should be able to cure it. There's no need for heaven grade. If it were anyone else who said this, Zhu Xian'er would definitely ignore it. However, Ling Han was an earth-grade low-level alchemist, and in terms of real status, he was far above her. Even the sect master of the Half-Moon sect would give Ling Han some face when he saw him. She said, my master has suffered a Dao injury, and can't be cured unless it's a heaven-grade medicinal pill. Ling Han was even more puzzled, and said, your master is at most in the spiritual infant tier, so how could he have suffered a Dao injury? Dao injury, also known as the injury of great Dao, was a backlash suffered when trying to analyze the power of heaven and earth. Only Shattering Void tier cultivators had the right to analyze the power of heaven and earth, so naturally, only Shattering Void tier cultivators could suffer a Dao injury. In addition, Shattering Void tier cultivators could use the power of heaven and earth, and those who were injured by them would also suffer a Dao injury. The problem was, if a Shattering Void tier cultivator made a move, with the strength of a spiritual infant tier cultivator, would he only suffer a minor injury? He would have long since died a few hundred times. Zhu Xian'er shook her head, and did not answer. Obviously, this matter involved a secret, and they were only acquaintances, so how could she easily reveal the truth? Ling Han did not pursue the matter, but it was obvious that he and Zhu Xian'er would have to compete for that crimson red chilling ice grass. Sorry, I also need the crimson red chilling ice grass, he said. Zhu Xian'er immediately revealed a strong hostility. This was her master's life-saving medicine. Moreover, the reason she agreed to fight for Ing Hong was because the latter promised to help her find other main ingredients, and go to the middle state to ask for a heaven-grade alchemist to help her concoct the alchemical pill. The walls here weren't transparent, and his figure immediately flashed, bringing Cheng Fei Jun into the Black Tower. In this space, he was a godlike existence, and stripping away Cheng Fei Jun's strange fire was an easy matter. As expected, a cyan flame immediately emerged from Cheng Fei Jun's body, and the strange fire in Ling Han's body immediately revealed excitement, sending a thought of Yaya to Ling Han, wanting to devour this cyan flame. Ling Han waved his hand, and a crimson strange fire instantly appeared, pouncing towards the cyan flame without hesitation. The two flames instantly fought. This was a battle between strange fires. Whoever won could devour the other, allowing themselves to grow, but the opponent would disappear forever. Ling Han couldn't intervene in such a battle, even if he was the master here. However, Ling Han's strange fire was nurtured from a Shattering Void tier elite's body, and its grade was extremely high. Moreover, with the Black Tower's strengthening, its strength increased greatly, and it quickly gained the upper hand. The two strange fires began to fuse, and it was visible to the naked eye that the cyan flame was disappearing, while the crimson flame became brighter and brighter. Ling Han made up his mind, and brought Cheng Fei Jun out of the Black Tower, casually throwing him to the side. If it weren't for the strange fire, he wouldn't stoop to such a minor character's level. This time, he just happened to be going to be certified as an Earth-grade alchemist, and conveniently obtained a strange fire, so it could be considered a great harvest. When he arrived at the main hall, Long Yongzhang and the others were already waiting there, all expressing their congratulations to Ling Han. Ling Han thanked them one by one, then brought Hunyo back to the inn, agreeing to come back in a few days. He had to get the proof of an Earth-grade alchemist to leave, so he indeed had to stay here for a while. However, Long Yongzhang and the others promised to get Ling Han's proof of identity as soon as possible, and wouldn't make Ling Han wait for long. Zhu Hexan told them about Ling Han's advancement to an Earth-grade alchemist, instantly causing everyone in Guangyuan to be dumbfounded. Only a few days had passed, and Ling Han advanced from a black-grade high-level alchemist to Earth-grade. How could they believe it? But they immediately became excited again. Following an Earth-grade alchemist, would they still have to worry about not having medicine to eat in the future? They were destined to be medicine pots, and let others be envious. On the surface, they said they wanted to celebrate for Ling Han, but in reality, they wanted to gorge themselves. After all, Ling Han's fruits, vegetables, and meat were too delicious, and they kept thinking about it. Actually, they didn't know that Ling Han had a vegetable garden that could supply the entire Rain country, or else they wouldn't have made such a request by chance. In their minds, these mortal delicacies were definitely extremely rare. It was night, in a quiet courtyard in the north of the small town. Cheng Fei Jun was dressed in black and appeared like a thief. He knocked on the door 3 long and 2 short knocks. With a creak, the door opened and a 14 or 15-year-old boy appeared. However, he expressionlessly stepped aside and did not say a word. Cheng Fei Jun's figure flashed, and he entered the courtyard. His footsteps were quick, and in just a few steps, he had arrived at the main hall. An unassuming old man was sitting and drinking tea. However, upon closer inspection, his complexion was strangely pale. "Greetings, Lord Luo." Cheng Fei Jun hurriedly knelt down and saluted, his arrogant attitude long gone. "Report every 10 days, why did you come early?" The old man surnamed Luo spoke, his voice hoarse, revealing a hint of gloom. At this time, the boy also walked into the main hall and stood behind the old man. Under the light, one could clearly see his appearance. His face was red and white, and it was indescribably strange. It turned out that he had put on some powder and rouge. Why would a young man put on powder and rouge? Chapter 293. Cheng Fei Jun didn't even look at it, still kneeling on the ground, and said, "This subordinate made a huge mistake, please punish me, Master Luo." "What mistake?" The old man surnamed Luo was still unhurried as he drank his tea. Cheng Fei Jun gritted his teeth, and said, "This subordinate's strange fire was stolen." "Pooh!" The old man surnamed Luo instantly spat out a mouthful of hot tea, stood up abruptly, and shouted sternly, "Do you know how many people and resources were spent to get that strange fire for you? Do you know how many elders of the sect were mobilized and how much price was paid to inject that strange fire into your body? This subordinate knows, but this subordinate really had no choice." Cheng Fei Jun said with a long face. "What happened? Tell me in full detail, don't hide anything." The old man surnamed Luo also calmed down. Yes. Cheng Fei Jun hurriedly told about the bet with Ling Han. However, in his mouth, he naturally downplayed Qin Kai Fu's arrogance, and instead said that Ling Han schemed and had long set his eyes on his strange fire, which was why he first clashed with Qin Kai Fu, and then baited him into a bet. The old man surnamed Luo listened without a word, and when Cheng Fei Jun finished, he said, "You're saying that he took the strange fire in the short time you were unconscious?" "That's right." Cheng Fei Jun hurriedly nodded. "This subordinate obviously knows the importance of strange fire, it's related to the great matter of Lord Sect seizing this Star Brilliance Palace Hall. Even if this subordinate was torn apart by 5 horses, I definitely wouldn't hand over the strange fire." The old man surnamed Luo didn't take his impassioned expression to heart. He revealed a contemplative expression, and said, "This person is the same as you, only in the gushing spring tier, not only in the gushing spring tier, but only in the first layer," Cheng Fei Jun hurriedly added. "Are you trash? You're in the 7th layer of the gushing spring tier, yet you can't even defeat someone in the first layer of the gushing spring tier, humph." The old man surnamed Luo glared fiercely at Cheng Fei Jun, then closed his eyes and thought for a while. "According to what you said, this youngster is very strange, becoming an Earth-grade alchemist at such a young age. Cheng Fei-jun's expression was slightly strange because he only said that Ling Han advanced to an earth-grade alchemist, but did not specifically describe how relaxed Ling Han was when concocting pills. Not only was there a little girl messing around, but he was also roasting meat at the same time. This was practically nature-defying. Ling Han was definitely not an ordinary earth-grade low-level alchemist. His true level was probably soaring to earth-grade high-level, and it was precisely because of this that Long Yongzhang and the other two earth-grade low-level alchemists would revere Ling Han as if he were a god. In the world of alchemy, whoever was stronger in alchemy would be the senior, the boss, and would receive the absolute respect of others. But if he really said that, then perhaps old man Luo would want to recruit Ling Han. How could he avenge his brother's death then? He had to be selfish. Old man Luo lightly knocked on the table, and said, "Not only is this boy's alchemy level shocking, he also has battle prowess in martial art that far surpasses his cultivation level. This old man will personally go out and capture this boy. Without the strange fire, you can't possibly control the Star Brilliance Palace Hall here. Sect Master's plan definitely cannot fail in the hands of a junior." Cheng Fei-jun was overjoyed. Ling Han also had a strange fire, so didn't that mean that he could obtain two strange fires in the future? Then his alchemy level would definitely increase. In this way, not only could he avenge his brother's death, he could also reap some benefits. Naturally, it was the best of both worlds. "Thank you, sir," he hurriedly said. "Stand up." Old man Luo finally raised his hand. "Don't get into conflict with that boy these few days, in case he raises his guard. This old man will act as soon as possible to avoid any undue delay." Cheng Fei-jun finally dared to stand up, and said, "This subordinate obeys." Also, this old man received news that many of the younger generation of the 9 nations of the desolate north have already moved, planning to go to the Winter Moon sect and participate in their once every 5 years disciple recruitment. There should be many good seedlings among this group of youngsters. This old man wants you to think of a way to keep them, observe them as much as possible, and pick out talents worthy of nurturing. This old man will personally come out and bring them into the sect, old man Luo ordered. "Yes, this subordinate will definitely do it properly," Cheng Fei-jun said respectfully. "Go." Old man Luo waved his hand, his expression clearly displeased. Cheng Fei-jun didn't dare to say anything, and hurriedly turned to leave. The boy closed the door after he walked out, and returned to the main hall, still expressionless. Looks like the important matter is about to succeed. After assassinating Long Yongzhang and the other two old geezers, Cheng Fei-jun's prestige will be able to control the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, and he can carry out Lord Sect Master's plan to push out an improved type of alchemical pill, adding corpse chi powder, allowing the martial artists of the 9 nations to refine their own corpse soldiers. These corpse soldiers will first devour the flesh and blood of countless mortals, then fight and devour each other, just like raising venomous insects. The last one left will become a corpse king, becoming a powerful aid for our 1,000-corpse sect. How hateful, a junior actually appeared at this time and obstructed Lord Sect Master's plan. This boy can't be left alive. This old man will personally take him down tomorrow and force out the strange fire. That trash Cheng Fei-jun will have his strange fire stolen from him in the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, truly an idiot. Forget it, that boy named Ling Han has already become an earth-grade alchemist, and he has to be eliminated, or else it will definitely affect Lord Sect Master's plan. After old man Luo muttered to himself, he stared at the boy on the side. A strange color floated in his eyes, and his snake-like tongue lightly licked his lips, saying, "Little sweetheart, it's late, we should go to bed." Hearing this, the boy immediately revealed a sinister expression, and grabbed old man Luo, pressing him onto the desk, and said fiercely, "Old man, I won't fuck you up today." Old man Luo's face was full of ripples, and he didn't resist at all. He obediently stuck his butt up, and that scene was too beautiful to dare. After a day, Ling Han went to the Star Brilliance Palace Hall again. He wanted to look up some information. Martial art was still unclear, but alchemy certainly had a gap in inheritance. There should be historical records of alchemy in the Star Brilliance Palace Hall, and Ling Han wanted to go. How did this gap in history happen, and what exactly happened back then? Additionally, he also wanted to know about that shattering void tier elite. Why did he attract the joint attack of Jiang Yufeng and several hundred heaven tier elites, and what secrets were hidden within? Although he still didn't have proof of identity, everyone in the Star Brilliance Palace Hall now regarded him as an Earth-grade alchemist. If he wanted to look up historical records, who would stop him? He entered the library, where there were a whole 7 enormous bookshelves filled with all kinds of information. Ling Han began to flip through them, looking for what he wanted. Very quickly, he furrowed his brows, because all the detailed records of history actually began more than 8,000 years ago. Strange. Chapter 294. According to the records, 9,000 years ago, a great calamity occurred in the lower realm. Many elites died, which also led to the great destruction of martial art and alchemy. After a few hundred years of chaos, the lower realm was finally rebuilt, forming the structure it had today. Ling Han found his name in the records. In his last life, he was called the Alchemy Emperor, and created the 3-fire guide technique, which was unfortunately lost. However, the names of his 2 disciples who studied alchemy with him were nowhere to be found. Not only them, but Jiang Yufeng and Chen Rui Jing, the 2 disciples of martial art, were also unknown, as if they had never existed in this world. Besides, Ling Han didn't find the biographies of Sword Emperor and Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. In the past, he only thought that Sword Emperor and Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden were very strong, but now that he thought about it, their sect should also be a colossus, terrifyingly shocking. Azura Demon Emperor recognized the 3 styles of black origin, but directly mentioned Heaven's Sword Palace. Azura Demon Emperor came from the realm of gods, so Heaven's Sword Palace should also be a force of the realm of gods. With a sword technique like the 3 styles of black origin appearing in Heaven's Sword Sect, could it be assumed that Heaven's Sword Sect was a branch of Heaven's Sword Palace in the lower realm? If this assumption was correct, at least Sword Emperor should have a way to break through to the shattering void tier, and even further, ascending to the realm of gods. Then, Sword Emperor should be brilliant in the world, illuminating an era, so how could there be no records? It was really incomprehensible. The Great Chaos 9,000 years ago, was it caused by the shattering void tier elites besieged by Jiang Yufeng and the others? But if Heaven's Sword Sect could communicate with the realm of gods, how could it be so tragic that hundreds of heaven tier elites had to sacrifice their lives? Ling Han put down the ancient records, and began to flip through the geographical records, as well as the distribution of various forces. The strongest in the North region was only in the spiritual infant tier, so he put this aside for now. The South, East, and West regions were slightly stronger, with heaven tier elites overseeing them, and there were quite a lot of them. At least on the surface, each region had over a dozen such elites, far surpassing Ling Han's last life. Could it be that in my previous life, I just so happened to appear in a post-apocalyptic world of martial art? That's why there are only 7 Heaven Realm experts in the world. Even if I include a power like Heavenly Sword Sect, there shouldn't be that many Heaven Realm experts, right? However, in less than a few hundred years, martial art ushered in a flourishing age. At least a few hundred Heaven tier elites were born, and a shattering void tier elite died. And now, another golden age of martial art has come, and a large number of Celestial Realm warriors have appeared. It won't be another catastrophe, will it? Ling Han rubbed his nose and continued. The strongest in the field of martial art was the middle state, and it was said that there were shattering void tier elites in charge. If it was the time when he'd just been reborn, Ling Han would definitely exclaim in shock. Fuck, a living shattering void tier elite actually appeared, but he'd even seen a living god, so this shattering void tier seemed to be just that. No one knew how many shattering void tier elites there were in the middle state, but Ling Han discovered the records of Heaven's Sword Sect. This force was one of the strongest sects in the middle state, and had a shattering void tier elite overseeing it. Was this Heaven's Sword sect the Heaven's Sword sect from his previous life? Ling Han felt that it should be. Then, if he could go to Heaven's Sword sect and flip through the ancient records, he'd definitely be able to discover the whole story of the Great Turmoil 9,000 years ago. However, this sect doesn't seem to accept disciples, or else I could sneak in. With the Black Tower as a cover, along with blood-sucking origin gold, I could enter any treasure vault and open any lock. Also, Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's Cloud Phoenix sect also stands in the middle state, and Setting Sun Saber Emperor's Absolute Saber sect is the same. And, when my tier is a bit higher, I'll definitely go to the middle state. After Ling Han browsed for a while, he stood up and left. He solved some of his doubts, but there were even more unsolved mysteries, making him very gloomy. Ling Han inquired about the remaining 3 main ingredients of the Restore Spirit pill, but the Star Brilliance Palace Hall indeed didn't have such ingredients. These 3 ingredients were all Earth-grade ingredients, so it was normal that the Star Brilliance planet didn't have them. After all, this was only the Tianyiji headquarters of the 9 nations of the Desolate North. He believed that if he went to the central city of the Desolate North, the Tianyiji there would definitely have these 3 ingredients. Ling Han left the Star Brilliance Palace Hall and walked towards the inn, but very soon, he had a feeling of discomfort. Someone was following him. Ling Han was immediately certain. He had the divine sense of a heaven-tier warrior, and was extremely sensitive. After being stared at a few times, he would naturally react. However, for the time being, he still didn't know who was following him. Without batting an eyelid, Ling Han began to walk towards a less crowded area. After walking for half an hour, when he arrived at a corner, his figure flashed, and he entered the Black Tower. Not long after, an old man's figure appeared. He stood at the corner, looking into the distance with a hint of suspicion on his face. He was obviously the old man surnamed Luo from yesterday. Because the matter of the strange fire was too important, he started taking action the next day, keeping an eye on Ling Han's movements, looking for an opportunity to make a move. At first, it wasn't bad. Ling Han actually walked towards a less crowded area, practically creating an opportunity for him. However, he never would have thought that when this brat turned into an alley, he actually disappeared without a trace. Where did he run off to? The old man surnamed Luo revealed a doubtful expression because he was confident that with his spiritual pedestal tier cultivation, it was impossible for Ling Han to discover him. However, the latter disappeared without a trace, which meant that the latter actually noticed him. This brat was indeed strange, and couldn't be underestimated. He walked around in place for a long time, wanting to find the secret behind Ling Han's sudden disappearance, but in the end, he could only shake his head and leave with a leap. Ling Han didn't appear, but rather stayed in the Black Tower with the strange fire. Now, the fusion of the 2 strange fires was nearing completion, and would be completed in at most half an hour. He waited patiently, and sure enough, in less than half an hour, a crimson flame flew over and danced around him, sending out a thought of, Yaya. Ling Han. However, in a short while, the strange fire suddenly transmitted a thought. Ling Han jumped in fright, the strange fire could actually speak. No wonder the strange fire wanted to devour and fuse with other strange fires, because that was how they grew stronger, not only the might of the flames, but also their intelligence. Hee, you can actually speak. Then you can't stay in my hands anymore, or else you'll take away all my privacy, Ling Han said with a smile. The strange fire jumped onto his shoulder, but strangely didn't ignite his clothes. Firstly, the strange fire itself could be controlled, and secondly, this was the Black Tower's space, so Ling Han had the final say. It said, I also want a name. You also want a name? Ling Han scratched his head, and said, naming isn't my forte. Since there's a small tower, you'll be called Small Fire. Small Fire, I'm Small Fire. The strange fire didn't mind, and after getting a name, it was extremely happy, jumping up and down on Ling Han's shoulder. Chapter 295. Youngster, you've just come to the dark demon forest, right? A sturdy man in his 30s looked at Ling Han with a smile. Yes. Ling Han nodded. This could be seen at a glance, unlike other people who had a strong, earthy smell on their bodies, which was caused by being exposed to the sun and dew at night in the forest. The sturdy man snickered, stretched out his hand, and said, "Here, everything depends on a transaction. If you want to ask a question, you have to give them something in return." "How much?" Ling Han asked indifferently. His wallet was now bulging again, so he was naturally indifferent to origin crystals. 1 origin crystal. The sturdy man raised a finger. One question required 1 origin crystal. Ling Han didn't mind. As long as he could find crimson-red chilling ice grass, he wouldn't feel heartache even if he had to pay 1,000,000 origin crystals. He immediately took out an origin crystal and handed it over. The sturdy man took the origin crystal and snickered. "It's time to answer the question." Ling Han knocked on the table. "All right." The sturdy man nodded, and said, "I don't know." Ling Han's gaze immediately sharpened, and he said, "Are you messing with me?" "Youngster, I'm teaching you a lesson. When you're outside, you have to be more careful. Don't trust people easily." The sturdy man laughed loudly, not the slightest bit worried that Ling Han would make a move on him. Because this was the territory of the Gale Demon clan, if Ling Han dared to make a move here, he'd be chased out at best, or killed at worst. Otherwise, this place wouldn't have become a safe haven. It was said that in a stronghold like this, there were even many vicious and wanted criminals who were chased by forces like the Winter Moon sect and the Beast Emperor sect, fleeing to this place. However, they didn't dare to make a move in the stronghold, which showed how deep the 4 great forces' tyranny was in people's hearts. Ling Han took his arrogance into his eyes, and with a casual swipe, 10 ginsengs instantly appeared on the table. Each root was as thick as a child's arm, and the roots were twisted like dragons. Hiss! When everyone saw it, they all stared with wide eyes. These were at least 200 or 300 years old treasured ginsengs. There were such treasured ginsengs in the dark demon forest, but they needed to go deep into the forest's core because it was too dangerous there. Usually, not to mention people entering, even demonic beasts were very rare, so there were a lot of spirit herbs, and their medicinal ages were astonishing. Such treasured ginsengs could be sold for a few dozen origin crystals, which was definitely more than enough. 10 of them would be worth a few hundred origin crystals, which was a very large fortune. If spiritual ocean tier warriors didn't steal or rob, they would need to spend dozens of years to refine them. All of a sudden, everyone's breathing quickened and their eyes turned red, wanting nothing more than to snatch them. Ling Han smiled faintly, pointed at the brawny man just now, and said, "Whoever kills him for me, these ginsengs will belong to him." Instantly, everyone's eyes were fixed on that brawny man. This person was only at the 2nd layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and for a late-stage spiritual ocean tier martial artist, killing him might not be as easy as flipping one's hand, but it wouldn't be too difficult either. Just lifting a finger and earning a few hundred origin crystals, where else could they find such a good business? Moreover, what kind of great tonic was a 100-year-old ginseng? Martial artists like them usually fought with humans and beasts, inevitably leaving behind internal injuries that normal healing medicinal pills couldn't touch. Only such a great tonic could completely heal them. Such a treasure could only be encountered, not sought. "Youngster, fighting isn't allowed in the stronghold," someone said. Ling Han smiled, and said, "No matter, you guys just keep watch. Although I'll be leaving soon, I'll leave 10 ginsengs with the stronghold master. Whoever kills him can go find the stronghold master to collect them. Now, everyone can be at ease, right?" "All right. All right." Everyone nodded. There were indeed people in the stronghold that would issue missions and ask for help, but if it was done through the Gust Demon Hall, it was inevitable that they'd get a cut. Thus, everyone hoped that the brawny man would leave the stronghold as soon as possible, quickly kill him, and then directly find Ling Han to collect the reward. This way, they wouldn't have to get a cut from the Gust Demon Hall. The brawny man's face turned green. He didn't expect that he'd be tricked to death by Ling Han just because he cheated a piece of origin crystal. He hurriedly took out that piece of origin crystal and threw it at Ling Han as if it was a hot potato. "I don't want your origin crystal, quickly take back the reward." Which family's second generation was this, actually wasting a treasured ginseng like this? Did your mother know you were so awesome? Ling Han didn't catch it, and said, "Take it, you can just go order a good coffin." The brawny man was so scared that he was about to cry. He only wanted to take advantage of Ling Han, but who would have thought that he would attract a fatal disaster? He hurriedly knelt down in front of Ling Han, and said, "Young master, I was wrong, please forgive me." "You really have to know your mistake," Ling Han said with a smile. "I really have to know." The brawny man continuously waved his hand and slapped himself. Each slap was very forceful, and even blood came out. Ling Han nodded, and said, "All right, this reward is cancelled." Ling Han was indifferent, and said, "The reward just now is cancelled, and replaced with a new one. Whoever can tell me where in the forest there is a place where cold and heat intersect, these 10 treasured ginsengs will belong to him." "Really?" Everyone's expression changed back to one of pleasant surprise. Ling Han nodded, and said, "Of course it's true. However, if anyone treats me like an idiot and randomly spits out a place, then I don't mind putting a reward on him." Everyone sucked in their teeth. Just now, that brawny man only tricked Ling Han of a piece of origin crystal, and the latter took out 10 treasured ginsengs to put a bounty on his head. If he tricked Ling Han of 10 treasured ginsengs, then how much would the latter offer as a reward? This kind of spoiled brat was really scary, rich, willful. For a moment, everyone was silent. Some people wanted to fool him, but were scared stiff. "Young master, I know of a place that meets your requirements." After a while, someone spoke up. He mentioned a place in the northwestern part of the Dark Demon Forest, and even attached a map to Ling Han, indicating the location. Ling Han inquired in detail, but was very disappointed, because that place was indeed intertwined with cold and heat, but it was far from what he wanted. However, he still gave the other 10 treasured ginsengs to establish his credibility. "Does anyone else know of such a place?" One piece of information in exchange for 10 treasured ginsengs. Ling Han waved his hand, and took out another 10-hundred-year-old ginsengs. Anyways, these things were like cabbages to him. Someone indeed received a reward, which instantly made the others excited. Even some onlookers were eager to give it a try. It didn't matter if they didn't know, couldn't they go and find out? "I'll stay here for 2 days. If there's any news, come find me." Ling Han threw down these words and left the restaurant, paying to rent a guest room. Chapter 296. Ling Han had already used the power of the Star Brilliance Palace Hall to investigate the old man surnamed Luo. This person was called Luo Jifeng, and had arrived in town 3 years ago. He had always been very low-key, as if living in seclusion here. Since he didn't cause trouble, the Star Brilliance Palace Hall obviously couldn't chase him away. At first, they monitored him for a while, but after such a long time, they no longer cared about him. During this time, Luo Jifeng would often run to the inn to monitor Ling Han. Of course, he thought he hid well enough, but it was impossible to hide from Ling Han's divine sense. However, Ling Han didn't make a move at all. The reason why Ling Han didn't make a move for so many days was because he didn't want to give Luo Jifeng the chance to make a move. If he dared to openly make a move in the inn, it would be equivalent to going against the Star Brilliance Palace Hall. And Ling Han was now an Earth-grade alchemist. Publicly making a move against Ling Han would definitely incite the wrath of the Alchemist Society. At this moment, 2 major events happened in succession. First, a large number of the younger generation of the 9 nations of the desolate north left their countries and headed towards the Winter Moon sect. Ling Han made some inquiries and found out that the Winter Moon sect would open their mountain gates once every 5 years to accept disciples. For the younger generation, being able to enter the Winter Moon sect meant that they would have a chance to charge into the spiritual infant tier in the future. Not to mention the younger generation, even the older generation was eager to make a move. However, the Winter Moon sect did not accept disciples under 30 years old. Taking a step back, even if they couldn't enter the Winter Moon sect, they could gain experience and couldn't always stay in one nation and be arrogant. Because the Fallen Moon Gorge was the only way to enter the North region, there were large numbers of young martial artists gathered in the desolate North. It was said that Cheng Fei Jun invited them to organize a martial art tea party to discuss martial art. For the youngsters, they were definitely number one in the world. Hearing there was such an event, they obviously had to participate. After all, the younger generation of the 9 nations were here. Who didn't want to take the lead and become number one in the desolate North? Resounding face. On the other hand, Cheng Fei Jun also took out a Restore Heart pill and said it would be a reward for the first place this time, arousing the youngsters' passion even more. The heart-repairing pill was a panacea for healing injuries. It was said that as long as one was still breathing, even the most serious injury could be healed immediately. In the worst-case scenario, it could still save one's life. To a martial artist, what could be more precious than a life-saving medicinal pill? Therefore, fame and profit naturally attracted many people. Secondly, Ling Han had been painstakingly searching for the blue-scale demonic fruit, one of the main ingredients needed to refine the spirit supplement pill. The Spirit Treasure Pavilion announced that they would be holding a large-scale auction, and a blue-scale demonic fruit would be sold at the auction. This was probably related to the recent gathering of many young geniuses. The geniuses of the 9 nations gathered together, so naturally, there was no lack of rich people. According to legend, this kind of spirit medicine grew together with the jade-scaled beast, and the jade-scaled beast was a 7th-tier beast, equivalent to the level of the spiritual infant tier. Thus, the difficulty of harvesting it was considerably high. The blue-scale demonic fruit was the main ingredient for refining the soul-nourishing pellet. It could repair a martial artist's damaged divine sense and was extremely useful. Starting from the flower blossom tier, when martial artists comprehended heaven and earth, they would spiritually wander into the void, often creating extremely dangerous illusions, such as traveling through hell and battling with terrifying opponents, causing martial artists to lose themselves and be unable to distinguish between illusion and reality. If a martial artist was injured in such an illusory world, their divine sense would be severely damaged. Spirit, Qi, and soul were all indispensable to a martial artist. If their divine sense was injured, it would affect their ability to refine spiritual Qi from their spiritual roots, causing their cultivation to stagnate. In more serious cases, it could even cause cultivation to regress and drop in tier. Thus, the soul-nourishing pellet that could repair divine sense became extremely precious. That's right. There was also a Spirit Treasure Pavilion here, which was similar to the Spirit Treasure Pavilion of Rain Country. Just like Tianyiji, it had branches everywhere. However, Tianyiji sold medicine, while the Spirit Treasure Pavilion specialized in the auction business. When Ling Han heard the news, he immediately went to the Spirit Treasure Pavilion, hoping that they could name a price and directly sell the blue-scaled demonic fruit to him. After all, he had left all his money in the Ling family, so it was useless even if he brought it over. They didn't accept the banknotes from Rain Country at all. Thus, he hoped that he could buy it on credit. He believed that with an Earth-grade alchemist as a guarantee, the ability to pay back the money was definitely not a problem. However, the manager of the Spirit Treasure Pavilion expressed regret. They never had a precedent of selling internally, and would not set such a precedent. Ling Han could only prepare more money before the auction began. And to buy spirit medicine above level 5, gold and silver were useless. One needed to use something called Origin Power Crystal. Origin Power Crystal was also called Origin Crystal. It wasn't a natural object, but a martial artist at least in the spiritual ocean tier had to extract their own origin power and pour it into a special crystal, and then seal it with the intent of martial art. Origin power crystal could be refined and absorbed by other martial artists to speed up cultivation, and even comprehend the intent of martial art within. This was a very good supplementary item for cultivation, and even surpassed most medicinal pills, becoming the most popular item among martial artists, thus becoming the common currency of the vast lands. The origin power crystals refined by martial artists of different tiers obviously had different values. The ones refined by spiritual ocean tier martial artists were the lowest, called 1-star origin power crystal, and those refined by shattering void tier elites were obviously the highest, called 7 stars. The ones circulating in the market were basically 1-star origin crystals, and those of 7 stars were like a fantasy, only heard of and almost never seen. After all, which shattering void tier elite needed to refine origin crystals to earn money? Ling Han was determined to get the blue scale demonic fruit, but a very practical problem was placed in front of him: he had no money. Such a spirit fruit would definitely need a large amount of origin crystals to be auctioned, but Ling Han didn't even have a single origin crystal. Even if he went back to squeeze Guang Yuan and made him work like a horse to refine it, the auction would start in 3 days, so how many could he make? And the 7 turns break crisis pill can be auctioned, but I don't know how many origin crystals it can be sold for, so it's not safe. Ling Han thought about it, and decided to take 2 approaches at the same time. On one hand, he would auction the 7 turns break crisis pill, and on the other hand, he would sell the medicinal ingredients grown in the Black Tower. Mainly ginseng and ganoderma. These were good things to nourish origin chi, and the older they were, the more precious they were. In the Black Tower, 1 year was equivalent to 1,000 years, so it was very easy to grow 1,000-year-old ginseng and 1,000-year-old ganoderma. Of course, it had only been about 2 months since Ling Han opened the Black Tower, so he couldn't grow 1,000-year-old ones yet. However, 100-year-old ginseng and 100-year-old ganoderma were definitely in high demand, and he didn't have to worry about not being able to sell them. Everyone liked things that nourished the body. Not to mention spiritual pedestal tier and spiritual infant tier elites, even shattering void tier elites wouldn't mind eating them often. For example, a ginseng stewed pheasant, who could resist such delicious and nourishing things? Ling Han didn't know how many acres of ginseng and ganoderma were planted, so he didn't care about taking out a few acres to sell. Because he didn't want to expose the secret of the Black Tower, Ling Han planned to go back first and dig out the ginseng and ganoderma, processing them before taking them out. Otherwise, if he directly threw them out with fresh soil, it would really be suspected. A spatial spirit tool that could accommodate living things, maybe even shattering void tier elites would be interested, and at that time, even the title of Earth-grade alchemist couldn't protect him. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 297. However, just as Ling Han returned to the inn, he encountered a group of old friends. Qi Yongyi, Bailey Tingyun, Li Dongyu, and the descendants of the 8 great clans of the imperial city, such as Zhao Huan, Qian Wuyong, Huang Weizhe, and so on. These people would basically be the mainstay of Rain Country for the next 30 years. They all heard that Ling Han became an Earth-grade alchemist, asked around, and came to visit after knowing that Ling Han lived here. An Earth-grade alchemist was too awesome, setting a precedent in Rain Country. Even if Rain Emperor came personally, he was only fit to be on equal footing with Ling Han, and even weaker emperors would have to flatter Ling Han. Since that was the case, these youngsters knew that Ling Han was here, so how could they not come to visit and greet him? Moreover, if they could form a relationship with such a super alchemist, that would be a huge gain. Master Ling. Qi Yongyi and the others all smiled, not daring to directly call Ling Han by name. Ling Han didn't take it to heart. He naturally didn't need to treat his friends as outsiders, but Qi Yongyi, Bailey Tingyun, and the others didn't pass his test, so they could only be considered casual acquaintances. No matter what they called Ling Han, he wouldn't care. However, Ling Han wouldn't be stingy either, and took out the vegetables, fruits, and meat he had grown in the Black Tower to entertain everyone. Now, there were still quite a few low-level demonic beasts inside, but if he wanted to entertain casual acquaintances, normal meat was enough. For a moment, everyone was fighting over plates, and the scene was out of control. The others in the inn thought they were going to fight, and almost ran to the Star Brilliance Palace Hall to call for help. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, as martial artists, everyone couldn't help but feel itchy. Can you actually reached the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier? Zhao Huan looked at Can Yi with some shock. Before this, he always suppressed Can Yi in cultivation, but now he just broke through the 7th layer of the gushing spring tier, but Can Yi soared to the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier. How could he not be shocked? Qian Wuyong and the others also cried out in surprise. The path of martial art was difficult, one must leave a footprint with every step. It was indeed possible to make huge leaps in the lower realms, but the higher one's cultivation, the slower it would be. It was like climbing a tall mountain. At first, one could sprint quickly, but halfway up the mountain, one would be out of breath and have to rest after every few steps. Can Ye's advancement speed completely surpassed their expectations. Can Ye didn't say a word, and remained as cold as before. He only lightly rubbed the hilt of the saber. In his eyes, there was no person that was closer to him than a saber. Everyone was only shocked for a moment before coming to a sudden realization. Don't forget, Can Yi was currently following an Earth-grade alchemist. With an Earth-grade alchemist using alchemical pills, how could his cultivation not advance quickly? In reality, Can Yi also possessed the qualifications to break through to the spiritual ocean tier, but he was the same as Ling Han. Because he advanced through alchemical pills, he had to first stabilize his cultivation. Blindly pursuing high cultivation was like pulling up seedlings to help them grow, the repercussions would quickly appear. If there was a situation where battle prowess star value couldn't keep up with cultivation, then how different would he be from a cripple? Can Yi, fight me? Zhao Huan challenged. Previously, he was always able to steadily suppress Can Yi, but now that Can Ye's cultivation instead surpassed him, he wanted to fight even more to prove that he was the strongest genius in the imperial city. They ate until late at night, and everyone left. However, 2 people even stayed in this inn, so they could return to their rooms in a few steps. 1 day, 2 days, time passed very quickly, and it was already the day of the martial art tea party. The location was set on the plaza in the east of the town. A huge pergola was temporarily erected here, enough to seat several thousand people. And this time, although the younger generation of the 9 nations of the desolate north all came, those who came were also the best of the best, at least in the poly tier. So, on average, each nation could get a few hundred seats, which was enough. The martial art tea party started at noon and ended at night. Ling Han, Lu Yutong, and the others came to the plaza, and randomly found a place to sit. There were more people in their group, and they soon occupied a table. Hunyo couldn't sit still, and immediately took out the snacks she prepared from the spatial ring, eating very happily. Soon, more and more people came, and even the star guards were mobilized to maintain order. After all, young people were impetuous, and it wouldn't be good if someone died in a fight. Friends, thank you for coming, I'm grateful. Cheng Fei Jun appeared and said in a loud and clear voice, instantly making most people stand up. This was a black-grade high-level alchemist, and he could be considered a big shot in any nation, so how could they be disrespectful? Chapter 298. Ling Han naturally wouldn't respond, and since he didn't move, Lu Yutong and the others naturally wouldn't give Cheng Fei Jun any face, and similarly sat upright. Hey, Grandmaster Cheng has come out to speak, and you all actually dare to sit, not giving any face at all, someone sneered, obviously flattering Cheng Fei Jun, do we need to give him face? Zhu Wujiu immediately said. He naturally knew of the conflict between Cheng Fei-jun and Ling Han, and immediately glared at him. Good, not only do you not respect Grandmaster Cheng, but you also insult Grandmaster Cheng in public. I think you're dead. That person swept his gaze over Ling Han and the others' faces, and when he saw Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan's stunning beauty, his gaze involuntarily tightened, revealing a stunned expression. You shut up. Beside that person, someone directly gave him a slap. You idiot, do you know who he is? Ling Han, a newly advanced Earth-grade alchemist. If you want to die, then die by yourself, don't drag us down. Pooh, that person instantly spat out, his face turning deathly pale. He didn't know Cheng Fei-jun, and to be honest, he wanted to know Cheng Fei-jun, but Cheng Fei-jun might not even pay attention to him. Thus, he seized this opportunity to stir up trouble. Wasn't it to curry favor with Cheng Fei-jun, and establish a relationship with him? Fine, he didn't manage to curry favor, but instead offended an Earth-grade alchemist. Wasn't this seeking death? Ling, Grandmaster Ling, I have eyes but failed to see, please forgive me, he hurriedly said in a trembling voice. Ling Han only waved his hand. He naturally wouldn't take such a minor character to heart. That person acted as if he was pardoned, hurriedly nodding at Ling Han, but no matter what, he didn't dare to stay here anymore. After sitting for a while, he stood up and left, afraid that Ling Han would suddenly find him to settle the score. Everyone, today's focus is tea tasting and Tao discussion. Tea drinking comes first, harmony comes first, and as for sparring, don't go overboard, Cheng Fei-jun said with a smile. Then, he took out a pill bottle and showed it to the surroundings. This is a repair heart pill, a reward for today's Tao discussion champion. Who wouldn't go all out with the heart-mending pill? Ha 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 ha, I'm Hong Fei from the Stone Kingdom. I'm most proficient in fist techniques. Who wants to spar with me? A sturdy youth flew into the arena first. There was a huge empty space in the middle of the pergola, which was used for fighting. Do you think you're worthy of using fists? A thin young man walked out, exuding an astonishing chill. Showing off your fists in front of me, Lian Xiuzhu, will only lead to death. Are you the only one in the world who can use fists? Hong Fei said coldly. Naturally, he would not be afraid. When I become the strongest under the heavens, only I can use my fist. No one else is allowed to insult my fist techniques, Lian Xiuzhu said gravely. What an arrogant fellow. He actually said he wants to become the number one under the heavens. Lian Xiuzhu, eh? Could it be that Fire Nation's Lian Xiuzhu? Have you heard of him? This person is known as the Fist Fanatic. I heard that he only knows one fist technique, which is the most ordinary Black Tiger Steel's Heart. He has been practicing it for more than 10 years. Pooh, are you joking? Practicing Black Tiger Steel's Heart can't even be called a yellow-grade martial arts technique. Indeed, but I heard that he is known as the number one person in the younger generation of Fire Nation. He defeated all the elites of Fire Nation with a single punch, and even the current Fire Emperor praised him greatly, conferring him the title of Marquis of Fists. And he's so strong. Everyone cried out in surprise. To be able to obtain the nod of praise from the Fire Emperor, and even be conferred the title of Marquis, Lian Xiuzhu's strength should be extraordinary. Hong Fei naturally heard this, and couldn't help but feel fear. Although he was a very strong existence in the younger generation of Stone Nation, he was not qualified to attract the attention of the Stone Emperor, who would confer him the title of Marquis or something like that. You are not worthy of using fists. Lian Xiuzhu had already launched an attack. It was a Black Tiger Steel's Heart, which was executed in a standard manner. However, there was an abundant air circulating around it, as if a Grandmaster of Fists had appeared and was executing a technique. Although Hong Fei used his ultimate move, he was completely unable to withstand this punch. He was instantly sent flying, lying on the side and coughing up blood. So powerful. This Hong Fei was also in the 5th layer of the Gushing Spring tier, but he couldn't even take a single punch. Lian Xiaozhu was indeed strong, living up to the Fire Emperor's praise. Brother Lian is indeed strong. I would like to ask for some advice. Someone immediately leaped onto the field. This was a young man of 23 or 24 years old. He was tall and slender, and there was a long saber hanging from his waist, exuding an astonishing sharpness. Lian Xiaozhu's eyes lit up, and he said, "Since you don't use fists, I can spar with you." Fine, this guy was indeed a fist maniac. If others used fists, he would directly send them flying, but if he didn't use fists, he could spar with them. I am Hua Gao Yi, also from Fire Nation, the saber user said proudly. Everyone couldn't help but say, oh. So he was also from Fire Nation. No wonder he jumped out to spar with Lian Xiaozhu. Because this was a Dao sparring session among the martial artists of the 9 nations, no one wanted their own nation to be outdone by others. This would make them lose face, wouldn't it? Please. Please. Lian Xiaozhu and Hua Gao Yi immediately began a fierce battle. Fist chi and saber chi collided, and the battle became white-hot as soon as it began. Sure enough, Lian Xiaozhu only used one move, Black Tiger Steel's Heart. However, he was able to use this move with great charm. Each of his fists had a different intent realm, and its power was astonishing. Interesting. Ling Han revealed a smile. How is it interesting? Lu Yutong and the others asked one after another. Even Guang Yuan was no exception, because he also couldn't think of anything interesting. Ling Han smiled, pointed at Lian Xiaozhu, and said, he should have cultivated a strange cultivation technique that has the effect of increasing his battle prowess. However, the side effect of this cultivation technique is that he can no longer cultivate other martial techniques. This would clash with his cultivation technique. Therefore, he only uses one Black Tiger Steel's Heart, but it has 100 different intent realms. It is very wonderful. There is such a cultivation technique? Everyone was baffled. The world is so big, and there are naturally all kinds of strange cultivation techniques. Moreover, this person specializes in one fist technique, which just makes up for his weakness of not being able to cultivate martial skills. Sometimes, simplicity doesn't mean mediocrity, Ling Han said unhurriedly. Mo Gao, for example, was also extremely proficient in cultivating the sword, but he didn't cultivate any sword techniques at all, yet he almost touched the heart of the sword. Simplicity didn't mean mediocrity. The young man in front of them had the same effect, but he was still far from feeling the heart of the fist. He had just embarked on this path. Can Yi revealed a strong fighting spirit and said, wait, I want to challenge that Hua Gao Yi. He was also a saber user, and after seeing Hua Gao Yi's gorgeous saber technique, he couldn't help but feel itchy, and just wanted to fight. Ling Han thought for a while, and said, you have a chance. Hua Gao Yi's strength is not below Lian Xiaozhu's. This battle will probably end in a draw. He also clicked his tongue in wonder. The youngsters of this generation were really talented, which surprised even him. Chapter 299. Snake transforming into Flood Dragon transforming into dragon, this was a very normal path of evolution. But the problem was, flood dragons always had 2 horns, so what was the meaning of having a bump on your head? Were you going to turn into a unicorn? Hunyou immediately lay on the ground and opened her small mouth, revealing her white teeth as she roared. If she had hair, they would definitely be standing on end. Ling Han also revealed a vigilant expression. This large snake was the overlord of the Gourd Cave, an existence at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. But for some reason, the feeling it gave Ling Han was even more terrifying than Ao Feng just now. That's right, Hunyou also felt this way, so she immediately put on a defensive and warning stance. Just now, when Ao Feng appeared, Hunyou was very calm. The large snake slowly stood up, its head continuously rising as if its body was endlessly long. When its head actually reached the same height as the valley, its entire body still didn't drill out of the layer of ice. This was really inconceivable. It was definitely at least 1,000 meters long, maybe even a few thousand meters long. Ling Han didn't understand. Could a spiritual pedestal tier beast snake grow so big? The bigger the body, the greater the power of a living being. For example, if a living being could grow to the same size as the vast lands after reaching adulthood, then he wouldn't need to cultivate at all. He could simply step on it a few times, and even if the vast lands didn't shatter, the people and beasts on it would probably all die, and only a few elites would be able to survive. But precisely because of this, the heavens would strictly limit the size of living beings. For beasts, only when their strength increased could their size increase accordingly. In the case of the spiritual pedestal tier, the maximum size should only be around 100 meters. Only the flower blossom tier could reach 1,000 meters, but it couldn't possibly exceed this number. However, this giant snake was only in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and not only did its size exceed 100, it even exceeded 1,000, advancing into the level of the spiritual infant tier. Added with the flesh bump on its head, it was even more strange. There had never been a snake beast that could transform into a flood dragon in the spiritual pedestal tier. Transforming into a flood dragon was something that could only be done after the heaven tier. Strange, too strange. It took a long time to describe, but this was only a matter of a breath's time. Hung, this giant snake descended from the sky, and its entire head smashed down just like that. Barbaric and violent, it used terrifying power to win. Ling Han's face turned green, and he grabbed Hunyou, who still wanted to soar into the sky and fight to her heart's content. His figure flashed, and he entered into the Black Tower. With the giant snake's power, weight, and the inertia of falling from the sky, such a huge force was enough to instantly smash him and Hunyou into meat paste, guaranteeing a complete and thorough death. This was really quite unreasonable. It didn't compete with any technique at all, and just used brute force to crush it, but not to mention, it was able to completely release the giant snake's power. Strange, strange, why do I feel a familiar scent from this giant snake? Ling Han rubbed his chin. Spiritual pedestal tier demonic beasts would have special elemental attacks, such as spitting fire, cold mist, and venom. Ling Han had even seen demonic snakes that turned all the scales on their bodies into sharp blades and shot them out. However, this giant snake didn't seem to have any intention of using its special ability at all. The moment it appeared, it fiercely smashed with its head, extremely practiced, and was a habitual offender. Ling Han looked through the Black Tower and saw that the giant snake was searching for his and Hunyou's flesh and blood all over the ground. The giant snake's eyes revealed a blank expression, as if it didn't understand how the two of them disappeared. Extremely stupid. Ling Han found it even more strange. Being able to cultivate to the peak stage of the spiritual pedestal tier, and only a step away from crossing the line of mortals, how could its intelligence be so low? Demonic beasts possessed very high intelligence, and the higher the level, the smarter they were. Flower blossom tier demonic beasts were definitely no weaker than human sages. But why was this giant snake always so stupid? It was as if it only knew how to use its head to smash people, and was only using its instincts to fight. Fight, fight. Ling Han made a decision. Xiao, his figure flashed, and he was already out of the Black Tower. Holding the demon birth sword in his hand, the thunder battle armor was already activated. Hung, his left hand blasted out a flash of lightning, while his right hand brandished the sword. Xiao, 7 flashes of sword chi crisscrossed. Pu, 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 2 attacks landed on the giant snake's body at the same time, but what surprised Ling Han was that the 7 flashes of sword chi only left a few white marks on the snake's scales, while the lightning was slightly more effective, piercing through the snake's scales and creating a wound on the giant snake's body. However, with the giant snake's size, this was really not painful or itchy. The giant snake was infuriated, and Hung, the snake's head smashed down again. Ling Han hurriedly entered the Black Tower, dodging this attack. Peng, the entire valley trembled, showing this giant snake's terrifying power. Ling Han, however, laughed, and said to himself, if it were another 9th layer spiritual pedestal tier, I really wouldn't be able to deal with it, but this snake is too stupid. I can exhaust it to death. He once again exited the Black Tower, and directly punched with both fists, activating the power of the Thunder Battle Armor, turning into flashes of lightning that blasted towards the giant snake's eyes. The giant snake was stupid, but its instincts made it very likely to avoid a vital injury like the eyes, immediately turning the snake's head and dodging. Then, it smashed down again, shaking the entire valley. Countless accumulated snow soared into the sky, and snowflakes filled the sky. On the other side, the sea of flames also boiled like a tide, splashing out crimson-red lava. Ling Han continuously entered and exited the Black Tower, tirelessly launching attacks on the giant snake's eyes. He only needed to succeed once, and he would be able to reap a great victory, so he was completely in no hurry. The giant snake was stupid. If Ling Han's strength was stronger, it would definitely have tunneled into the layer of ice under its instincts, and wouldn't have fought with Ling Han at all. But in its eyes, Ling Han was so weak that it only needed one smash to kill him, so how could it escape from such a smelly bug? Moreover, it was continuously hit by Ling Han. Although its skin was thick and its flesh was thick, and it only hurt a little, it completely stimulated its ferocity, and it was determined to kill Ling Han. One man and one snake, just like that, continued to wear each other down. After a few hours, the giant snake appeared to be more and more manic, constantly pounding the ground with its head as if it wanted to take the initiative. Ling Han looked for an opportunity, and in the instant that the giant snake pounded the ground, he attacked from within the Black Tower. Xiao, with a wild slash, 800 sword lights soared into the sky. It was precisely the mysterious 3000. Pu, 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 these sword lights all blasted at the giant snake's right eye. At this time, the giant snake's terrifying defense was fully displayed. Even if the eye was such a weak vital point, it actually didn't shatter after several hundred sword lights blasted at it. Only when the last 100 sword lights surged past did a crack finally appear on the eyeball, and then, like broken porcelain, it shattered with a loud bang. Pa! A liquid rushed out like a burst dam. Under the pain, the giant snake began to writhe madly, and a huge force went on a rampage, as if the whole valley was about to be flattened. Ling Han entered the Black Tower, and immediately recovered his origin power. Now that he struck out with the mysterious 3000 with all his strength, it wouldn't exhaust all his power, but it still seemed to be 1/3 less. He crushed a few dozen origin crystals, and recovered his cultivation very quickly. Then, he charged out of the Black Tower, wielding his sword, and charged in through the hole in the giant snake's eye. The demon birth sword activated 2 vein-like patterns, and sword chi crisscrossed. Ling Han didn't care about the consequences, and slashed to his heart's content. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.